Hello. Is this thing on? Are we here? Can you guys hear me? Is this the volume good? Old school. Nice to see you. Scott Miller. Hello. Zero Fucks. Nice to see you. Tali will be here shortly. You know what? It was like I was sitting here. I have everything ready, pretty much. And I was sitting here on my waiting screen, and I was like, you know what? Why wait to go live? Why not just go live right now? Have a little pre-stream banter with my little wickers, okay? And say hello to all of you. Yesterday's show was kind of frustrating. A little bit. I wish I had better arguments for the other side, for the or for the pro healthcare for immigrants side. I wasn't satisfied with the arguments from Coder or Fatty. They didn't give great arguments, unfortunately. But it is what it is. It was a good, interesting topic. All you can do is throw them in the arena, right? Yes, the Wicker Men. Or women. I don't judge, okay? You can be whatever you want to be in my chat, I suppose. Why does nice to see you? Are you early or late? You're a little early. We're waiting on Tali. She should be here shortly. I don't know. I'm not sure how tonight's going to go. I'm planning on a discussion. But I'm ready if it turns into something more than that. I want it to be, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion on the merits. Let's see what's actually happening. Let's dive down into it. But I'm prepared if it becomes something else. Okay, we'll see. Joseph says, yeah, Dev did a good job, but I feel like the others missed some obvious flaws in his thinking. Well, that's one of the hard parts of being a moderator is a lot of people say I put my thumb on the scales a lot and I jump in a lot. And that might be true, but I promise you, for every time I jump in, there's like 10 times that I hold myself back from doing so, right? There's 10 times where I just bite my damn tongue. But sometimes it's just there's something that's so low-hanging, that's so obvious that I just have to say something. I don't know. It is what it is. Headless Chicken says, if Tali says the left, I hope she says hi to Nick Fuentes. He ought to love her. Well, that's the genesis, the catalyst, if you will, of today's discussion is the Fuentes, Carlson, Shapiro. Oh, hello. Hello. We're live, by the way. Yeah, we're live. People can see us and hear us.
Oh. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Yeah, I went live a little early to, I don't know, just talk and loosen up the vocal cords. How you been? It's been a while. What's going on?
I know. I've been okay. How have you been?
You know what? It's actually pretty great. Tuesday was a good night.
Fair.
It's weird though. Like, for my personal life, it was going great for a while, but the political stuff was not so good. And now it's kind of reversing a little bit, which is like weird to me. But here we are.
Your personal life is up in flames. Is that
what
you're saying?
Up in flames. It's not up in flames by any means, but it's worse than it was a month ago, but not that much worse. Just personal stuff. But anyway, that's how I'm doing. I got a big shot in the arm from watching the results.
Damn, you're vaxxed again? I said you're vaxxed again?
I've been vaxxed 32 times. I cast 60 ballots yesterday, okay? Wow. In Virginia, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, right? You know, we are back, baby, okay? Yeah. Woke has returned. It's time to trans everyone, okay?
I don't know about that. I think I do I do think that's, I guess it's all about pumping up the base at this point, but I do think that branding's a bad idea. Of woke is back. I've seen that a
I
lot. I
I
know you're
I'm joking.
mostly joking. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
joke.
I gathered that. I know, but
Okay.
other people are posting it. Uh, some I think totally seriously. Others, like I just said, just kind of
Well, I
adding to
think
their base celebration, all that normal
yeah, I think
stuff.
that there's a tendency for people to kind of get a little over their skis on when you have nights like Tuesday. Like, yes, I'm celebrating because it was a great night, but I am under in no wise under the impression that we have beaten MAGA and it's all good now and we're just going to cruise to victory. No, we got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of stuff that the Democrats still have problems with. And some of it I'm sure we're going to talk about tonight, right? In our discussion. But yeah, I think that it would be a mistake for Democrats to treat this like the Republicans treated the 2024 election, where they thought, oh, this was an entire repudiation of all things Democrat and liberal. MAGA is there forever, and we're just good. So Democrats do not make the same mistake that the Republicans made. Hopefully they won't, but we'll see, right? A lot of time between now and the
Yeah,
midterms.
yeah. I think that's wise advice.
Yeah. Oh. How's things over in Thailand? What have you been up to?
Um, Things have been pretty good. I know it's funny. You asked how I've been, and I asked how you've been, but I really have an unfair advantage because I get to watch how you've been, every day around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I,
True.
I watch most of your streams, even though we haven't been able to get our schedules together
Yeah.
for a show in a while. Yeah, I've been good. I've been chatting with Gen Z attorney and Ryan Mullally a bit. Um, Kay, who she's a member of your channel, I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure,
know
a
who she
frequent
is. Yeah.
frequent chatter over here.
Hmm.
She and I have been chatting. We put out a conversation, I think it was last week, and we're gonna do another conversation today. So, keeping busy.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. Guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I am curious to see what I don't know. Did you guys on when you were talking with Ryan and Gen Z and stuff? Have you guys talked about Tuesday at all? What are their thoughts? I actually haven't. I was Gen Z was on my stream on Tuesday, but the results had not come in yet, and the topic was Snap, so it was a little different, right? So I'm just curious what
Mhm.
their thoughts are on it, if you know.
I don't know. I spoke with
Yeah.
them last on Sunday.
Okay. Well, I guess I guess I'll have to see if I can talk to them. I do want Ryan on my
Presumably
show
not
again.
thrilled. Yeah.
Huh?
Presumably not thrilled.
I guess we'll see. I mean, I do want to have Ryan on again to I'm trying to set up a debate with right-leaning people about the it's tangential to what we're going to talk about today. Well, not really tangential. I think it's very much along the same lines of what we're going to talk about today. About the Fuentes, Tucker, Shapiro infighting on the right and what that means and where people stand, things like that. So I got counterpoints on one side and Lactoid on the other, and they both need a buddy. So I think this is one of those times where Ryan would probably side with counterpoints, and I'll just need to find a buddy for Lactoid, but we can make that happen. And I'll have to figure
Okay.
out what days he's free and get that done. But it's 6 o'clock. Let's get this started. I'll introduce the show, and then we'll kick it off and start with the topic at hand. So welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of The Vibes Are Off with Wick and Tali, where we discuss cultural issues, political issues. We yell at each other. Sometimes we yell at you, audience, if you pay us enough. And basically, just have a good time and discuss issues of the day. No guest today, but we are going to have a discussion, I think, about anti-Semitism. Do you have any I guess, how would you introduce this topic, Tali? I'll give the mic to you and let you kind of set the stage.
Okay. Cool. So I am glad you framed it as a discussion and not a debate because frankly, I'm not so interested in debating this topic. Which side has a worse anti-Semitism problem, the left or the right? Both sides have bad problems, different types of problems. Um, and yeah, I do want to discuss what's going on right now, discuss the direction of both parties and things like this. But um, I think what spurred this conversation was your well, I guess there were two things that I had responded to on Twitter.
Go ahead.
One of them, one of them was a repost that I had done of David Frum. David Frum. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce his last name. I had reposted him talking about the infighting going on the right over anti-Semitism. He made a tweet basically like the right is, something like they're having a civil war, over the anti-Semitism of the party. And he said something to the effect of like something which the left is not doing or which the Dems are not doing.
Mm.
I agreed with that sentiment and I retweeted it. And then I noticed that you had quote tweeted it, basically saying like these essentially like these silly assholes, like they're living in memes and living online and they don't see all of the infighting that's happening in the Democratic Party, which I basically just disagreed with. So I think I'm not super optimistic about just how bad the anti-Semitism is on the right now. I'm not going to downplay that in any way. I hope we'll talk about it in extreme detail because it is disturbing and very concerning. But I am uh, optimistic slightly. I don't know if there's a better word. I'm heartened to see the beginning of pushback on the right from Republicans in good standing, from people with clout and cachet in the movement, actively pushing back with a lot of moral clarity, which to me is something that just isn't happening on the left. You could argue that the problem with anti-Semitism on the left is not as severe. I would argue they're different flavors, maybe even more pernicious, but it's certainly less in your face ugly. Um, I haven't seen the left really tackle the issue of anti-Semitism. And so I think that's something that I'm particularly
Sure.
interested in discussing is what both parties are actually doing about this issue.
Well, I think for the purposes of the show and the discussion, it would be helpful to kind of talk about what we mean when we say there is an anti-Semitism problem on the left and the right. Because I think one thing me and Tali both agree on here is that there is a problem. Like, I would never argue or never say that the left has no anti-Semitism whatsoever. That it would be just a lie. I would be lying to you if I said that. Like, there are absolutely people who are on the left who do just hate the Jews. They hate Israel, they hate the Jews, they hate everything about it, right? That is an issue. It kind of shocked me when it was kind of revealed after October 7th just how many people there were. So I'm not here to defend like the Democratic Party or the left as being anti-Semitism free. It's not. But I do take issue with the framing that the left hasn't been rooting this out continuously because I have been part of one of the drivers, not a minor driver, mind you, but one of the drivers. And I have plenty of people who are on my side on the left who've been consistently calling out anti-Semitism, punishing anti-Semitism, voting out anti-Semitism. And we have people who are governors. Gavin Newsom recently signed an anti-Semitism bill, right? Where he pushed back against anti-Semitism both in schools, colleges, etc., across the board, right? And so I when I say that David Frum or however you say his name is living online in memes, it's if you aren't seeing this pushback, it's because you're not looking for it. And I wanted to talk about that today too. But I would describe on the left, and maybe it'd be helpful. Like, I'll describe the problem as I see it from the left, and you can describe the problem as you see it from the right. So the problem I see it from the left is I think that we have had a lot of people who have hate in their heart for Israel, and it results in anti-Semitism. And this has come and manifested in the sense of like the Free Palestine omni-causers, right? The protests that they've done across college campuses and things like that, and where they're blocking Jewish people from getting to their classrooms and things like that, and just this general drive, and like I would consider it like a propaganda campaign almost, to paint every single person who is pro-Israel in any way, shape, or form as simply a bad person, and trying to paint every Jewish person, if they don't denounce Israel, as some sort of evil, controlling, I don't know, Jew. So that's the problem I see it from the left. Did I get it right? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe in starting my description of the anti-Semitism on the right, we'll start with the overlap, which is in the very last thing that you said, which is seeing the Jew as the all-powerful thing, right? So what concerns me particularly is we are in a populist moment right now, both on the left and the right. And the populism of fuck the rich, fuck the powerful, fuck the deep state, fuck the globalists. Almost all of those have Jewish, if not Zionist, big quote, Zionist connotations. And so you see this, a lot of those same sentiments and statements on the right. But in the very obvious ways, not to hide the ball, the right has a Nazi problem right now. You could argue, I know there are people who will argue that the right has always had a Nazi problem. And that is true insofar as the very small number of people in this country with neo-Nazi sentiment generation after generation vote on the right. This is true. In the same way that this problem that you're talking about of anti-Semitic anti-Zionism and seeing Jews as the oppressor of Americans, right, and brown people abroad, is also something that's been deep on the left since the mid-60s, early 70s. So these problems have existed on both sides of the aisle in significantly smaller numbers. But on the right now, there's people just openly flirting with Hitler. And again, it in some ways it represents a similar phenomenon to what we are seeing on the left, which is rejection of liberalism, something that you and I have spilt a lot of ink or a lot of words over on your channel here, about the importance of at least classical liberalism and the foundation of liberal democracy that our country and the modern West is based on. But so a lot of what's going on the right and the left is this post-liberal utopia, basically. And so you have people on the right who are saying that we're stuck in this post-World War II moral consensus that they reject. They feel like we've all been propagandized our entire lives about the ills of the Holocaust and the evils of Adolf Hitler. And really, maybe Hitler wasn't all that bad, He was doing what was in the best interests of his people, and who knows if he actually murdered 6 million Jews, and really he wasn't even trying to murder them. Like, they had to be imprisoned, and then there wasn't really enough food to feed them all in the prisons. And so they were kind of put out of their misery. They were euthanized, right? So that they wouldn't have to suffer in the camps. You see a lot of this type of stuff in different doses. So you have some people on the right. I know I'm monologuing here. You feel free to cut me off, but
I'm gonna let you finish, and then we'll get to it, right?
Sure. So, there's different levels of this on the right and the left in how frank and explicit people want to be. So you have the people on the right who are doing this type of stuff and still trying to maintain an air of civility. They won't say Jews, they'll say Zionists or globalists or whatever. Or they will knock on what they see as quote unquote low IQ anti-Semitism when they view themselves as essentially the high IQ anti-Semites. And so, yeah, I mean, there is and was a real problem of conscience on the right, of people making these arguments, getting a lot of attention, getting bigger platforms, and people on the right not taking a moral stand, basically, and drawing lines around what they wish their movement to look like. and that has started to change. I mean, perhaps too little, too late, frankly, but at least in the last couple of weeks that has started to change.
I'll give some folks. First of all, thank you for the $5. Old school. Old school says left wing anti-Semitism is much more subtle, so is excused a lot. Right wing is more overt, sometimes comically so. Both try to hide behind anti-Zionism. I generally agree with that statement. I guess I would say this though. You mentioned that we are in a populist movement moment on the left and the right, and I would argue and say that the left, the Democrats specifically, have largely rejected their populists. Now, that's not entirely true. You have Bernie Sanders, you have Mamdani, and you have some others. They are there, but I would argue that MAGA is the populist movement that dwarfs anything you see on the left. The left are often seen as the elites, the party of the technocrats and things like that. And I think that we see.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I mean, both parties are having this fight within their party. There's the establishment versus the populist wing, and there's more wings, but within each party. So yes, MAGA has been a populist movement. I agree. I'm no pushback there.
Sure.
But to say that the populist movement on the left has lost, it's in ascendance. So it's sort of starting. Yes, it's not, populism is not a brand new phenomenon. So yes, you can point to people like Bernie Sanders, you can point to politicians on the left from, throughout history, but right now in our current time, the left, there is a large segment of people on the left, whether that's the sort of intelligentsia, the commentariat, or it's harder to know exactly where the voters are at, right? But there is absolutely an ascendant populist movement on the left. Many of them explicitly taking notes from what they see as Donald Trump's populist movement of the right. So I guess this is where my frustration comes.
That's why it's getting a lot less traction in Democratic circles, is because it is seen as something that is from Donald Trump. That's not true, obviously, but they see it as associated with the right, and there's a lot of people who, well, I'll just point to Tuesday as a great example, right? The moderate, non-populist Democrats overachieved. They beat their poll numbers by 6, 7, 8 points. The populist Democrats underperformed. I think it's pretty clear that despite there being, and you are correct, that there is a small vocal minority of Democrats on the left who are becoming populist and trying to promote populist ideas, populist culture. I would argue that they are the minority on the Democrats, and I would argue on the right they are the majority.
Sure. So I don't agree that they're losing, or that we saw them lose on Tuesday. On Tuesday, most of the candidates who were running were more establishment, more normie, moderate, whatever. Yeah. And by the way, I'm glad that you're right. Again, if people will recall, that was another one of the purposes of you and I when we first started talking together, right? It was like the sort of center left, center right, hoping that both parties will move to the center, because we obviously believe that that's where the healthier politics lie. So I just don't see how Tuesday was a rejection of that. There are people on the left who are saying that, Tuesday, they're zooming in on just Zoran Mamdani, right? And saying that this is the evidence that to the left that it.
Yeah, that's silly.
We're also conflating a couple different things. So populism is a way to describe like part of the feeling in these movements, but it's not the only way to describe them. So, for example, you have moderate normie candidates on the left who are speaking to an economic populist message, and then you have hyper progressives, right, who are also populist. So the two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive.
What do you mean by the normies Democrats speaking to an economic populist message? What do you mean? What are you referring to?
I mean, I think this has been the topic of conversation on the left, on the right, and on the right, frankly, especially the takeaway, so especially with some hindsight after Tuesday, is we need to be focusing on affordability. We need to be focusing on the economy. I don't
Yeah, but
know
I don't.
exactly what's
I would
unclear about.
never say economic focus and affordability is a populist thing, right?
Sure, I guess it depends on the messaging, basically, because again, I'm describing populism as more of like an energy
Okay.
here, and not like a clean or clear political ideology on its own, which is again is why it's like there's populism on the left and the right. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess I don't see that this is like dying on the left or that the left has ever seriously dealt with the problem of anti-Semitism, and to the point of the person who sent the super chat before, I didn't catch the name. Um, yes, the anti-Semitism on the right is more obvious and explicit. It makes it easier to identify. The anti-Semitism on the left is not just harder to identify, but it has an extra problem, which is that it cloaks itself in the language of anti-racism. So it's not just like someone saying this neutral thing and then we can determine if we think it's actually neutral or bad and anti-Semitic. Is that the people who are anti-Semitic on the left call themselves anti-racists. They vehemently deny any accusations of bigotry in the ways that the explicit Nazis on the right are not going to
Well,
wave away those
well, to be clear, the right says, "Oh, we're not anti-Semitic. We're just America first." That's the
sure,
the cloak they
and that's
use.
true for them, and that's the true for the majority of people on the right.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
that's an accurate representation for the majority of them. My point being though, but Wick, so yes, I hear what you're saying, and this is true for pretty much every ism. Most normal people who like want to be accepted within any type of mainstream society will not accept labels like that. People like Nick Fuentes will, right? There are people on the right who it's partially in reaction to what they see as wokeism and all of this stuff, and partially edgelordism. But there are plenty. I don't want to say plenty. There's a significant vibe, movement, whatever on the right of people who will just take those labels. They'll just accept them, you know? In fact, again, going back to what I was saying is the sort of post-liberal movement on the right, part of their frustration with the focus on World War II and the focus on the Holocaust is they believe that America and the West now sees racism as the original sin. And they will say just openly and explicitly, racism is not that bad. Racism is not the worst thing you could do. You know, we've been taking racism too seriously. An accusation of racism, basically isn't isn't that big of a sin. Has been the explicit direction of some people on what they were calling themselves the dissident right.
yeah, well,
So
that was like, I understand, and I even agree that I think that people, especially in the SJW days, right, would use racism as a cudgel. And it became a word you used if you disagreed with someone, regardless of whether they were racist or not. One of the problems with that is it allowed actual racists to sneak in. Because I don't think that this, like, we've seen this kind of outward fight for the last 2-3 weeks, longer if you follow James Lindsay, right? But it's been a fight for a while, but we've only seen it recently. But this has been happening, and the reason why I disagree with you on who has more of a problem with anti-Semitism, and why I think that maybe you are downplaying and
we don't
other
even
people are downplaying.
we don't
Let me
necessarily
finish. Let me finish, and then you can go. Is because this problem has existed for a while and it's become, I would argue, terminal. When you have reports coming out that 30 to 40% of young staffers in DC on the GOP are groypers, that is catastrophic for the right, because that is how policy gets shaped, messaging gets put out. These staffers do a lot of the job work, the grunt work, and when you have them getting caught with Nazi American flags, right? With like the swastika. I don't know if you saw that, right? Where they had a swastika American flag just chilling in the White House or the congressional offices. I don't know what to tell you, right? Like I can't point to a similar thing on the left.
Sure, you can. You can not a precise one-to-one, as in I can't name a specific staffer working in a Democratic office, right, who has a Nazi flag. But we can think about like influencers and stuff with a lot of pull with our politicians who would sport like a Hezbollah flag, for example, right? To use Hassan Piker as one example.
Yeah, but Hassan Piker,
Like,
let's be clear. Hassan Piker is not welcome at the DNC. The Democrats kicked him
Wick,
out.
this is not true. I'm sorry. You got people who repeat that are doing Hassan's propaganda for him. Hassan was not kicked out. It didn't happen. That was how he portrayed it because he wants to show himself as the big bad boy and the rebel, that he's too radical for the establishment Dems. He was asked to move from one section to another section at a certain point in the night when someone who was a higher priority than him came in and they wanted to give that person his
shut
seat.
down his
He was not
booth,
asked to leave.
and they didn't let him into the
He was not.
Mamdani's party, right? Like
He was
kept
not.
him out.
That's not true either, Wick. He was at Mamdani's party. He was being interviewed all night. They didn't allow him up to the bar at that one point in time. He didn't get invited to the VIP level to go to that bar. Again, you're literally like you're doing his propaganda for him. Hassan was hugging and kissing with AOC at the Mamdani election party. He was just hanging out literally on Capitol Hill doing a tour with Summer Lee and featured in her video that went out today or yesterday. People are not he's speaking at Crooked Media today. He's on the stage with the Obama speechwriters and with Tim Miller and all of these people who are supposed to be like moderate, normal establishment people. This is, again, sort of part of my point. So I think you are respectfully mischaracterizing my position. My position is not that the left has a worse problem with anti-Semitism than the right. And in fact, I reiterated this to you in our DMs when we were planning this debate, was my argument is that the right, I'm seeing more action on the right among Republicans in good standing to actually try to push back. Whether they're going to be successful remains up in the air.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. You got Ben Shapiro.
Sure.
You got James Lindsay. You got Ted Cruz. You've got Mitch McConnell.
You've got Dana Loesch. You've got Seth Dillon. You've got Joel Berry. You've got a certain segment of the Fox News hosts. I was just watching one of the Fox News podcasts that they had Ben Shapiro on the other day, and they were speaking just very explicitly, naming names, not being coy, not trying to please whatever. And this is with the former employer of Tucker Carlson. And again, Wick, you're right. It's a smaller list than I would want, and unfortunately, it seems to require like Jews, right? The person who's made the biggest statement against this so far is Ben Shapiro, and he's being like personally threatened by the Groypers, by
he's being
Nick
cast
Fuentes,
out of the Republican
by
Party
Tucker
right
Carlson, right? Precisely, or that's what they would like to happen, right? Because they want to control the direction of the Republican Party. So I'm not. Again, I just feel I wish that this weren't a debate because there's no need to compete. This shit sucks in both directions. I'm also
I'm not like I don't think I'm framing this
right.
as a debate. We're having a discussion, but I think when we have the discussion, we have to be clear about what's happening. And I think it's like
right,
to frame this is like the left isn't doing enough. And that's fair.
What are they doing?
But the right isn't.
Can you list who has been specifically condemned on the left for their anti-Semitism and meaningfully removed from the party?
Okay, can you give me an example of someone you would think needs to be removed that hasn't been?
Can you give me any examples of any person who has called out explicitly anti-Semitism on the left?
Who's called out explicitly anti-Semitism on the left? Again,
who's in
Governor
good standing
Newsom
on the left.
Governor Newsom, right? Some say he's the forerunning candidate, right? Has recently passed a bill, right? not just called out, but actually put legislation on the table that is anti-Semitism. This is a weird way to say it, right? But like that absolutely pushes out of schools, pushes out of um, government in California. Like, what
Well,
else do you
it
want from
doesn't.
him?
It definitely doesn't push it out of the schools. In fact, California has like among the worst sort of anti-Semitism in their K through
Well, why
12
do
in
you
their
think he's
ethnic
passing
studies
this bill
program.
to call it out and
So
push it out?
first of all, I don't support legislation against anti-Semitism. So this is something that I could have brought up as an example of the ways that the Republicans are fighting anti-Semitism more than the Democrats, right? Because we've seen the Republicans again making these stupid bills against anti-Semitism, trying to limit the free speech rights of citizens and non-citizens and all of these things based on under the guise of anti-Semitism. I don't think these things help. I don't think they prevent anti-Semitism. I think in many cases they exacerbate anti-Semitism because they feed into the conspiracy theory, and anti-Semitism is a set of conspiracy theories. It feeds into the conspiracy theory that you're not allowed to talk about the Jews, right? If you want to know who controls you, look at the one people you're not allowed to criticize. So I don't think that that's particularly helpful. But okay, sure. So he's doing something in his state. Where are they calling it out within their party? Calling out their influencers, calling out their commentariat. Because right now, I
Oh,
mean,
was it? No, I
Majority
got an
Report,
example. I'm trying to
Breaking
remember his
Point,
name. He's a
Young
representative. I'm
Turks,
sorry, a Democratic representative. I think in New York. I want to say. What is his name? Someone remind me.
Richie Torres.
Torres, Richie Torres.
Richie Torres, yeah.
Yes, he's Democrat, and he calls out Hassan specifically all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
That's one example. Fetterman,
Have you
another
seen? Have you
example.
seen? These are two great examples. I worry you're not going to have anyone to call out after that, and that's also why I said Democrats in good standing. Fetterman is easily the number one hated Democrat uh, in the party. Like, if we're going by the commentariat class, right, and the people who talk about politics on the left, they absolutely hate John Fetterman. Same thing with Richie Torres. I mean, you should
Chuck
see what
Schumer,
the
the
people.
leader of the
Hold on, you should.
Democrats in the Senate.
Nah,
Do you?
he's a huge pussy. He barely. He Yeah, no.
Chuck Schumer calls rise in
He has
anti-Semitism
said
a five-alarm fire, right?
yes while
I don't
contributing to
know.
it in so many ways throughout his career.
Yeah, but you
But hold
keep
on, let
asking for
me
examples, and this is my frustration.
let me
You
get.
ask examples, I give you examples, and you like, well, nevertheless.
But my point. Okay, but my point is Republicans, I'm sorry, Democrats in good standing because that actually matters. So again, you bring up John Fetterman, that has completely cost him his good standing in the party, right? He's willing to call people out by name and specifically completely cost him his good standing. Same thing with Richie Torres. There is no one more attacked from the left than Richie Torres. Did you see his interview on the Adam Friedland show? Have you seen the people
Hold
who
on,
are
Adam
primarying
Friedland is
Richie right now?
not a part of the Democratic Party. Adam Friedland is a far left
He's on
lib.
the left. He's okay. The far left is part of the Democrats in the same way that the fucking far right Nazis are part of the
No,
Republicans.
it's
This is the
not.
topic of
No,
it's the
no,
topic
this
of
is
conversation
no, no, no,
today. Of
no.
course it is.
This is the fundamental difference, right? So the people who are on the far left do not work with the Democrats, and the Democrats do not work with them. However, on the far right,
Okay,
you have
Nick
groypers
Fuentes,
in
Nick,
staffing
the
positions in
Groypers. No,
D.C. You
wait. The
have, let
Groypers
me
are
finish, you
actively
have
campaigning against
Donald
Donald Trump.
Trump
No, but wait,
appointing
you're
people that
literally
have a little Nazi streak in them.
yeah. So first of all, this report that 30 to 40% of the staffers on Capitol Hill are groypers. This was not a report as in like someone did a statistical analysis. This was a person's offhand comment. And by the way, I think they could be right. In the same way that I think 30 to 40% of the staffers on Capitol Hill in the Democratic offices are deranged, woke, crazy people on the left. This is something that we saw in the Biden administration, right? Even the people who hate Biden on the left will tell you that he was one of the most progressive presidents that we've ever had in this country. And that's not because that was necessarily his moral foundation. It's certainly not what he ran on. It's because he had a lot of young progressive staffers working for him. So this is a problem on both sides. But the idea that Adam Friedland doesn't count on the left, but Nick Fuentes counts on the right, Nick Fuentes before the election was actively campaigning against Donald Trump. Right now, he's actively campaigning against J.D. Vance. So if Nick Fuentes is part of the Republican movement, then of course Adam Friedland and Hassan Piker and all of these people are part of the Democratic movement. We're talking about the left versus the right. You don't get to pick away all of the nuts from the left, but say they all belong to the right. That's just ridiculous.
I can, however, point to you the huge discrepancy in the people that the Democrats take seriously and work with the Democrats in legislation, staffing positions, administrative positions, and see, and we could just measure this, right, on how many are there in Democratic positions versus how many are there in Republican positions. So when I talk about what's a problem, like there are levels to this. It is a problem, just in general, that there are people, even no names, on both sides who have anti-Semitic views. That's a problem. We agree. Okay? But a comedian who hosts a podcast, right, who isn't on, as far as I know or aware, and doesn't have any followers in like administrative positions in the Democratic Party is a different thing than, for example, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., peddling baseless conspiracy theories, right, about Jews and COVID-19.
Sure, but again, it's like to call RFK Jr. the problem of anti-Semitism on the right would be just like totally missing the forest for the trees. He's a crazy conspiracy theorist. He's not particularly anti-Semitic. It's not something that most Jews are concerned about when it comes to anti-Semitism on the right.
But he did
I'm not
put
denying
forth
that the right has
a
huge
conspiracy
problem.
theory where
And
the Jews created COVID-19. Is that not anti-Semitic to you?
He didn't say the Jews created COVID-19. He talked about COVID-19 specifically, and he made a claim that it was first
They
of all,
engineered
he's calling it a Chinese virus. Correct. That it was engineered to not affect like East Asians and Jewish people. He is an idiot and he's a conspiracy theorist. And fine, Wick, if you think then we're really just changing the conversation, because I thought we were here to talk about the scourge of Nazis on the right, which obviously RFK Jr. does not belong to. And by the way, RFK Jr., when he was making all those comments about COVID-19, registered Democrat, right? So this wasn't a problem of the Republican Party when any of these comments were made, okay? So we can put that out there. But this idea that Adam Friedland doesn't count because he's a comedian and he just talks on the online, the people that we are talking about with the biggest problems of anti-Semitism on the right and the left are not elected officials. We're talking about Candace Owens, we're talking about Tucker Carlson, we're talking about Nick Fuentes. These people are not in politics. These people are not elected officials in the same way that most of the people with the anti-Semitism problem on the left are not elected officials. They have varying levels of influence with elected officials on their side, but the main problem we're having is with the commentariat on both sides.
The press secretary of the Department of Defense, Kingsley Wilson, is a prolific purveyor of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, right? So, yes, Tucker Carlson and all them, they're not politicians, but they are who the right, large portions of them, are listening to and basing decisions on and appointing to positions of influence and power in the federal government.
Yes, this is bad.
Yes,
bad. Like,
yes, this is bad.
Fire bad. Yes, again, but Nick Wick, go back to what I said to you when you asked me to debate which side has a worse problem with anti-Semitism. I said that's not what I'm interested in debating. I'm interested in discussing which side is addressing it more. I'm not denying the 5-alarm fire of explicit bigotry and anti-Semitism on the right. I'm saying that the right is doing more in a very short time to attempt to address the scourge of anti-Semitism on their side, more in like a 2-week period. And by the way, 2 weeks, they're late. They're 2 years, maybe more, too late to this conversation. They have done more publicly.
Look, I want to give flowers to
on the left
Ben
in like
Shapiro.
20 years.
I want to give flowers to Ben Shapiro. Absolutely, he's doing what is needed to be doing. Is it too little, too late? I don't care. He's doing it now. That's what matters. I wish him well. I will help him to do so. I want him to succeed. I would rather have a opposition party to me, a right wing that is free of any and all anti-Semitism and Nazis, that the Democrats will lose more often against, than a Republican Party who's infested with Nazis that the Democrats win 99% of the time against. Because that 1% of the time we lose is going to be catastrophic in a way losing to just a normie Republican would not be. Now, that said, again, what is being done? They made a video, Ben Shapiro made a video. What else? Like, is that what else are they doing to combat this? They made a
So, well,
podcast.
Wick, what do you? Okay, so Wick, what can they do? They can talk about it, right? Because again, Ben Shapiro is not an elected official. Even elected officials, all they can do actually is have moral clarity and use their voice, right? No one on the right is calling for cancellation. They're not calling to have any of these platforms remove these people. They're not calling for government censorship. These people are, they're all they can do is literally speak up using their voice. And yeah, Ben Shapiro put out one podcast. He also talks about this stuff multiple times a week and has been doing so for years in a more cowardly fashion than he has in the last week. And I'm glad to see him be more explicit. But what else can he do? And after that one podcast, as you call it, he's been out almost every day on other people's podcasts and at live events talking
Yeah,
about
here's
this.
one thing. Like, I think I've seen Avi Bitterman talk about this. He's like, if you
Yeah.
keep doing this, I just won't vote Republican anymore. But that's the problem I have
Yeah.
with Ben Shapiro, right? I gave him flowers, but now I'll give him a little condemnation. Like, he's been saying this for a while, but if he keeps voting Republican, it's never going to change. They're just going to ignore him because he's not
Well, you
serious.
can say that. You could say that, but or he in his argument, he would keep voting for Republicans who are not anti-Semites in the same way that like people on the left would say, no, it's not the entire left. I'm going to continue to vote for non-anti-Semitic or
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
non-racist
I
or
wouldn't
non-whatever
vote for if like for
Democrats.
example, if Hassan Piker was to be in a position of or run for a position in Democratic Congress, even if he was running against MAGA, I would not vote for him because of his anti-Semitism. That's
Mhm.
the difference. Like, and
I think that's
Ben
true for.
Shapiro
So,
just
are you saying that
would
Ben
vote for
wouldn't do that?
the anti-Semitic MAGA
Ben's
guy
not
over a
voting for
Democrat.
Tucker Carlson. See, you're presuming that. I think that's just presumptuous. Maybe he would, but you have no evidence for that.
Okay, well, I mean, he keeps condemning Trump, but then voting for him anyway. $10
Right,
from
and
Zephyr.
the things that he condemned Trump for, he spoke first of all, again, I've already called out what I see to be his cowardice in that regard, but he is able to explicate based on his moral prioritization why he was able to justify voting for Trump. He wouldn't have voted for Trump if he thought that Trump was a purveyor of anti-Semitism, and I
Yeah.
don't think that he would do that moving forward.
Let's get some super chats and we'll address them. Only Mr. Bill for $2 says, name Dems that called out Ivy League college deans for riots. Didn't we have a whole panel before Congress where we called these people up and excoriated
The
them?
Republicans called them up.
The
The
Democrats
Democrats
were
very
also
often
excoriating them as well.
a tiny minority. Very often during those hearings, the Democrats would get up there and just be like, "How are you guys doing? Like, are you guys doing okay?" Basically, which is not uncommon. That's how these things work. One side calls in the witnesses, the other side thinks this is a sham. The Republicans do this all the time. The Democrats will call in people to cross-examine them, and then the Republican gets up there, it's their 5 minutes, and they say, like, how are you doing today? Have you had enough to eat? Is that water cold enough for you? So this happens on both sides of the aisle, but to pretend that those presidents being called in front of Congress had really anything to do with a democratic movement is just belies the facts.
$2 for Zephyr Hash. Fetterman isn't hated for his anti-Semitism stance. Um, 20% correct. I think that a lot of people turned on Fetterman just because he was
Hated for his
anti-Palestine.
Zionist
So, yeah.
stance. Yeah.
$10 from Zephyr Hash. I like the growth Tali has shown in the past months. From I voted Republican as a principled stance to left is anti-Semitic to I don't care is Republican staffers if Republican staffers have Nazi flags. Marvelous. Excuse me.
It's incredible because I just didn't say that.
$5 from Zephyr Hash to say when Charlie Kirk dies, he is a prominent spokesperson on the right. When Owens Fuentes say anti-Semitic stuff, they're just unelected commentators. Thank you for $5.
They're not just, again, it's like you can, if you need to strawman me, I guess okay. They're not just commentators. 5 alarm fire. And again, how long have I been talking about this, Wick? Since you met me, I've been talking about the very concerning movement on the right of these explicitly anti-Semitic voices and just conspiratorial voices. So no, it's not. Oh, it's not. In fact, Again, it just what an incredible straw man. I am here condemning the people on the right who say that very same thing, who say, it doesn't matter. It's fringe. These people are just talking on YouTube. You know, I'm the one out there that I've been repeating for months. No, actually, they're not just talking on YouTube because among the top 10 news podcasts on Spotify, literally Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens rank within the top 3. So I'm not at all saying, oh, these are just little baby angels and we shouldn't be too hard on them and the Republicans are trying so hard. I've been beyond frustrated with the lack of moral clarity on the right and of people trying to downplay it. And I think some of those people who are downplaying it on the right have similar intentions to the people downplaying it on the left, which is that they don't want it to be true. They are not anti-Semites in their heart. They're not trying to be cynical. They think that it's a problem that their party can overcome if they don't give too much attention to it. So I think that's what's going on the right, but I'm not excusing it at all. I'm here explicitly calling it out.
You should super chat and yell at her more, Zephyr Hash. Give us more money to yell.
Evidently.
But you say all this, and I agree. I agree, and you have, and I can't give you anything but accolades for calling it out. But I worry that while you call it out, you have the Vice President of the United States calling it infighting, basically, right? Saying, oh, we just don't worry about this infighting stuff.
Yeah. Oh, wait. More than that, Wick. Shame on JD Vance. He's more than just the infighting. Yes, he's taking the Matt Walsh approach of like, we shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves, right? Which is cowardly. And again, I think ultimately going to bite them in the ass. I think the right is following the lead of the left, ignoring their crazies because they don't want to quote unquote infight and they want to keep together some type of coalition for votes. But yeah, I mean, A, he's being a coward, and B, is actively contributing to it. When he was on his Turning Point USA tour last week, and he was confronted by groypers in the audience who were talking about Israel controlling our government, he didn't say that's ridiculous. He didn't even have to call it anti-Semitic. I know people are so fucking sensitive to the accusation. So fine, don't call it anti-Semitic. You can just say that it's factually untrue, that it's a lie, right? He didn't do that. Instead, he fed right into it and said, you don't need to worry because our president, Donald Trump, he's not owned by Israel, insinuating very clearly, that yes, typically America is owned by Israel, but right now we're in the exception because, you know, MAGA and Trump. So again, I'm not defending JD Vance. In fact, I think it's concerning Tucker Carlson's son is like the press secretary for JD Vance. He works in his office closely with JD Vance. So I'm concerned absolutely about the direct influence of this commentariat on some elected Republicans. I'm definitely sincerely concerned about that.
What would you say to this comment? And this was by No Cal Mike in the Twitch chat. Says this. Because the right needs their crazies to win, but the left loses because of their crazies. What would you say to that?
That might be true. I hope it's not true because right now I see myself more in alignment with right-wing thought than left-wing thought. So it would be very unfortunate if the only way for a successful right-wing coalition or for a right-wing coalition to succeed is to include their conspiracy theorist, anti-Indian, anti-Jewish, anti-woman, whatever contingent.
Yeah,
but sure, that might be true.
Did you watch Hutch's show the other day? I was sent a clip of it, and it was very interesting. But basically, he was watching Rob Noor's response to the November 4th, right? He was watching his response to the election that we had recently. And Rob Noor basically, and I'm going to quote him here, he says, I will work with anyone. I will work with Nick Fuentes if this means beating the Democrats. And I think that there is a large, much more than anti-Semitism. It's this accepting of anti-Semitism. Like, if we have to be anti-Semitic to beat the left, we will, basically. And that's where I think the most insidious of the problem. Because I don't think Rob is anti-Semitic himself. I haven't seen that anyway. But he's saying, I will do
people. Or not, I don't know about most. There's a large portion of people who traffic in anti-Semitism don't hate Jews. That's not their motivation, right? They're caught up in conspiracy theories. They're caught up in tribalistic politics. They're caught up in populist rhetoric, like I said, but I don't think most of these people, frankly, are motivated by hatred of Jews. The problem is it doesn't really matter because that is the outcome at this point in time. But so yes, I watched that video, and let me take it a step further. So obviously, I disagree with Rob Noah. That's not shocking. I disagree with Rob Noah about a lot of things. I don't think he did himself any favors in that video. So again, that is a popular position
Oh,
on the
did you
right
see
now.
it?
That is how
I'm
a
just
lot of
curious.
people. I did. I saw it, and I
Okay,
saw
okay. I
Hutch's
was
response,
just
and I'm going to talk specifically about Hutch's response. So I don't think Hutch covered himself in flowers in that video because he was essentially relating himself to. He was like, "Oh, I kind of feel for Rob Noah right now." He's like, "I'm kind of been making a similar argument. I'll work with anybody." And Hutch has in a pragmatic sense. And so I don't want to. I'm about to criticize Hutch, but I mean Hutch is by far my favorite, like after Wick TV, of course, by far my
okay.
favorite liberal commentator. I watch his show most days. I always catch the videos that he posts if I miss the live. So I think Hutch is really great. He's a Democrat that I would like to work with and stuff like this. Okay, great. However, he said in his video, similar to Rob, he's willing to work with anybody to get to have Democrats control Congress and eventually control the White House.
I know.
And he harkened back to.
Oh,
Hold
go
on.
ahead,
No, no.
please.
Well, no, hold on. So I will steel man and not straw man, but give my criticism of Hutch. The steel man is Hutch is being eminently reasonable and pragmatic. He knows that in order to affect any political, he's criticizing in a very contrapoints way. You know, he's saying all these people on the left, they don't want power, they just want to critique power. He's like, I actually think Republicans are the biggest risk to the future of this country. So I want Democrats to win. I want Democrats to have power. In order for Democrats to have power, they need to win in their elections so that we have a voting block. Extreme, perfectly logical, right? And again, he's making the point that I'm okay with accepting Democratic, not for the most part. He doesn't like Graham Plattner. He didn't like Jay Jones, but he even said he would get around to voting for them if they were the party's nominee in their respective districts or states.
Well, he
Um,
called on Jones to resign, to be clear.
he also said he would vote for him.
That's the difference between me and Hutch, I guess.
It is. Well, and hold on. Let me finish it because I do want to get there.
Yeah.
So Hutch was relating himself to Rob Noah in this video. And again, eminently reasonable in many ways. What Hutch is saying is like, I'm okay with Democrats electing people who are more progressive than me, and I'm okay with Democrats electing people who are more moderate than me. That's his point. However, in their most recent Live and Learn conversation with Prime Kai, Hutch bit the bullet. I understand why, but he bit the bullet in the hypothetical that he would vote for a segregationist if they were running as a Democrat and it meant control of the Senate.
I don't think he
This is
actually would.
something Wick. Okay, so and you're kind of calling him a liar.
Yeah, I am.
This is a difference. Okay, that's fine.
I think he's saying it in a debate that is a crazy hypothetical, whereas Rob Noah is saying it in something that is not a hypothetical, that is actually happening right now.
Sure.
That's
okay,
the difference.
Fine. You are right. Insofar as Nick Fuentes actually exists as an influencer on the right, and
people are trying to bring him into the fold, and he's saying, "I will work with him."
We don't. Correct, and there's not actually a segregationist running for a Democratic seat right now, but that we know of. But Hutch did. So again, you could call Hutch a liar, and it'll be interesting to see if he doubles down on that or not, or how he explains it. And again, there's a certain. If you can understand where Hutch is coming from, then you can understand where Rob Noah is coming from. I think both are severely misguided. I think, like you always say, you need to have some type of moral principle that you can go to sleep at night, right? But from both of their perspectives, the other party is an existential risk to their livelihoods and way of life. And so they're willing to work with anyone, even people that they might deplore personally, if it means power for their party. And I don't think that's good.
$5 from Zephyr
Hash. I understand it.
Sure. $5 for Zephyr. I'm going to read these super chats. There's 2 of them, then I'll respond. And thank you, Feder Methodist, for the bits. Feder Methodist says the problem with anti-Semitism is all on the right. We on the left don't hate the you-know-hootie. We just don't like their scheming and drinking the blood of babies. Kiabat Kiabar. Okay, thank you for the bits. $5 from Zephyr Hash to say the issue isn't you calling it out, Tali. It's the deflecting and couching everything in the Dems do it more. Wick. Drinks are on
which
me,
I haven't
baby.
done not once in this conversation.
$5 from Alishness to say, does the problem of anti-Semitism on the right boil down to rhetoric of owns the libs, which in most cases dislike of Jewish people falls into?
Can I answer that?
So, hey, yeah, of course.
So, unfortunately, no, I don't think so. Some of it does. There is a certain portion of anti-Semitism on the right that, yes, is owning the libs, and 70+% of Jews in America traditionally vote for the left. Part of it is a little more conspiratorial than that, so maybe it starts like that, but it turns into the Jews are responsible for all of these liberal ideologies that we don't like, so they will say that the Jews are responsible for communism and Marxism and Bolshevism and all of these things. So some of that exists, but I don't think it's, again, even if that's not motivated by anti-Semitism, they're getting just straight into conspiracy theories. On the opposite end, I do think that one of the problems in fighting anti-Semitism on the left is that it is, well, let me say this actually to be totally fair. One of the problems with fighting anti-Semitism, or a major problem fighting anti-Semitism on both sides of the aisle, is the way that their flavor of anti-Semitism fits neatly into popular movements on their sides today. So on the right,
It's like an infiltration. They do it on purpose, right? They will couch their hatred of the Jews in similar language to that of what people are popular and talking about at the time. It's an infiltration tactic. It is effective.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, and some people are doing that, and I agree with you. Some people are infiltrating in that way on the left and the right. People who dislike Jews or whatever, and they're using, like you said, that movement on the side to make it more acceptable and more palatable when they talk about how they don't like the Jews. But so on the right, some of this, what we're discussing as the anti-Semitism on the right, the more explicit kind of overt neo-Nazi rhetoric, fits neatly into the nativism that has been facilitated on the right, right? It does fit neatly into that. It fits neatly into some of the anti-immigration stuff, right? The dislike of Jews and Jewish power on the right, comes down to like Jews bringing in the immigrants and like being responsible for the browning of America, right? So in that ways, it makes it sometimes harder to challenge from the right. And frankly, Richard Hanania, I think, points this out. I think he points it out in a piercing way that it's hard to look away from, which is people on the right who want to call it the anti-Semitism thing, they're going to have a hard time fighting it because part of the anti-Semitic propaganda on the right fits neatly into these other things that they're all about, right? He's talking about the anti-Muslim bigotry, which I think that's a lot more complicated. But again, especially like the nativism and all of this, right? How it's going to be hard to fight it when half of what they're talking about fits neatly in with what the rest of you guys are agreeing with. And the same thing goes for the left. It's really hard to fight the anti-Semitism on the left because most of it is cloaked as anti-Zionism, and anti-Zionism on the left is an anti-racist movement. And so the hatred of the Jews is not because they're Jews for many people on the left. The hatred of the Jews is because they're white. It's because it plugs directly into their woke framework of oppressor versus oppressed, of brown versus white, of rich versus poor, and the Jews fall out on the losing side of all of those. The Jews fall out as the rich ones, the Jews fall out as the white ones, the Jews fall out as the oppressors. So again, you have these not necessarily integral parts of each party. I don't think that a Republican Party needs to be nativist, right? Or white nationalist. And I don't think a Democrat Party needs to be woke and needs to view everything through a binary of oppressor and oppressed. However, right now both parties do in many ways. Large swaths of the parties think through these systems and through these frameworks, which makes identifying and fighting anti-Semitism in both of these parties particularly hard.
I don't necessarily disagree, right? I think that you frame the problem correctly. Most like we can quibble on the details, but it's not a big deal, right? My issue is, and what I reached out to you to talk about, is I don't think that you're giving. I think that you're giving more charitability to the right and less charitability to the left than is deserved. I think that the left while it has problems, I would never say it's free of anti-Semitism. Obviously not.
Hold on. Wait. Can I I want to clarify. You think I'm giving the right too much credit or not giving the left enough credit?
Both
Or both?
at the same time. You're giving much too much credit to the right and too little credit to the left. $10 from the Oceanist to say, what about the anti-Indian hate we see on the right? Just look at some of the comments on posts by Vivek Ramaswamy. I feel like this comes from the Groypers too, but doesn't get as much attention. To just address that briefly, though that is kind of outside the scope. Yeah, that is a very big issue on the right, is this anti-minority, like just anti-minority in general. Like if you're not white, you don't matter and you shouldn't matter and you should just go. And there's a large portion of the right that, there is no other word for this, is racist, right? That is a racist thing to do and to say. Yeah, I don't know how else to frame that, right? But yeah, that's a bit different than the scope of the conversation today. But it is true that the Groypers are also racist, as in addition to being anti-Semitic. Yes.
Yes, that's not shocking. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you heard me a couple minutes ago, but I brought up the anti-Indian hate on the right. It's a real problem. It's disgusting. And it's just like, it's cringe. It's really cringe for a lot of people like me who moved to the right as sort of like, as classical liberals or former leftists or whatever. We thought that we were moving to, and again, it's easy to say, oh, leopard eating your face and whatever. This is still true for part of the Republican Party. It's not true for all of it. But most of us were moving to what we saw as the side that wasn't going to judge you on the base of your race, your skin color, your sexuality, your gender, all of these things. So it is, I mean, it's despicable on its own, on its face. It's ugly and it's racist and it's counterproductive. And it's also it's a knife to the coalition that they theoretically are going to need if they want to continue having, Republican victories moving forward.
I think that, well, let's I'm still unpacking the results of Tuesday, and I'm gonna actually, nice to see you, Sarah. I'm gonna actually have a debate on Sarah's channel next week about this, about whether or not the Tuesday
Excited about
election
that
was a
one.
repudiation of MAGA or if it was simply a one-off fluke, local politics kind of thing. It should be an interesting discussion. But I do think that you're correct that there are a lot of people who did want to move away from the excesses of the left, and they thought they would be free of that through MAGA, that are waking up to the fact that, oh no, it's worse over here. And I think we saw that reflected in the results of Tuesday's election. But yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe. I think a lot of people are saying that. I just think everyone should, like you opened with, like, just be cautious of how much you try to overextend these
Yeah,
results.
no victory is ever forever. It's never forever. And it's only the start. So we don't win as Democrats until we make people's lives better. We can win an election, but we haven't won until we've actually made people's lives better. And that's going to be like, they've given us the ball. Now we got to put it in the basket, right? We've got a chance to shoot. Now we got to score. Okay. $5 from Gelatinous Rube to say, spamming the Staples word of power button with tears as a distorted "that was easy" is increasingly drowned out by moans and rage behind the static. Thank you for the $5.
I have no idea what that means, but it was very poetic. So thank you.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna just reiterate, just to ground us again in the middle of our debate here. My contention is not that the left has a larger problem of anti-Semitism than the right. My contention is that there are more people on the right explicitly fighting it, both elected officials, people in the commentariat, and random Republican voters online who are actively pushing back against this more so than I've seen on the left. And again, I think we've just like seen this throughout history. I think it's also, I think people and some of the super chatters talked about this before, but because left-wing and right-wing anti-Semitism are different in flavor, different in kind, people perceive them different in terms of lethality or danger. And if we take it all the way to its extreme, there's something to that, insofar as being murdered is worse than being what's the word I'm looking, deported or something, than being a citizen and being deported from your home country, right? Being killed is worse than that. We can agree, right? Genocide is worse than ethnic cleansing. Okay, for an example. However, that is what we're talking about on the right and the left. So if we want to again take it to its logical conclusion and say that the right has a Nazi problem, and that would be a 5-alarm fire, right, and a concern for the safety of like Jewish bodily autonomy, right? Jews could die, right, from the another Nazi movement. And on the left, the anti-Zionist movement, that movement resulted in hundreds of thousands of Jews being expelled from their countries. The anti-Zionist movement of the Soviet Union was responsible for expelling hundreds of thousands of Russian Jews, of Soviet Jews. Tens of thousands of Libyan Jews, of Moroccan Jews, of Egyptian Jews were all thrown out of their countries because of quote unquote anti-Zionism. So again, people on the left are able, people have a really short historical memory, right? If they even know about it at all. Most people don't know about like anti-Zionist violence, right? They only know about Jewish persecution really in the Holocaust. But so if we're going to take seriously the anti-Semitic Nazi rhetoric on the right, we need to take seriously the Soviet-style anti-Zionist rhetoric on the left, because both of these movements throughout history, throughout Europe, throughout the Middle East, resulted in the expulsion and death of Jews. So I take both of them seriously, even if one side calls you a Jew and the other side calls you an oppressive billionaire Zionist. Both are equally dangerous to the safety and success of Jewish Americans.
I do agree that both are catastrophic in nature. They both are very bad, yes. But I cannot agree that if AOC, or let's say Mamdani, okay, because Mamdani's made some yikesy comments, I don't think that the Jewish people in New York City have anything to fear bodily autonomy-wise. I don't think that they're going to be deported or persecuted to a greater degree because Mamdani got elected. Still, I don't like his socialist policies by any means, and I don't think.
No, that's what like every Jew in history said, right?
Okay, but we're going to find out, like, for the next 4 years, right? Or however long.
Yeah, we're going to find out the same way that they found out. Again, the best place to be a Jew in the 1930s was Germany. Literally,
okay, well, do you think? I'll just ask you. Do you think Mamdani's going to threaten the Jewish population in New York City?
Do I think he's going to call for the
is he
murder
no
of the
not
Jews?
not like is he
No.
going to allow or push through his policies or rhetoric persecution of Jewish people in New York City?
Via anti-Zionism, yes. He's going to be limited in what he's able to do, but his entire political project, what inspired him to get into politics, was anti-Zionism. And again, people will downplay anti-Zionism because they don't see it. They see it as, in some ways, a righteous cause, and in other ways, a less dangerous cause than Nazism. But anti-Zionism was responsible for thousands, tens of thousands of Jews ending up in the gulags, hundreds of thousands of Jews being evicted from their homes in the Soviet Union, evicted from their homes in the Middle East and North Africa. Well, so no, I don't think that in his 4-year term, he's certainly not going to try to kill all of the Jews. He's certainly not going to try to expel all of the Jews. He may, I think it is likely that he will work to make New York a more hostile environment for the quote unquote Zionists, and that is a threat to the safety of Jewish people.
I guess the follow-up question would be, if Nick Fuentes was elected mayor of New York City, do you think he would be better or worse for the Jewish population?
I think he also wouldn't be able to really do anything to the Jewish population because New York has strong protections against protected groups. Obviously, Nick Fuentes is. I'm not voting for Nick Fuentes.
Well,
He is
I
a
didn't suggest you were.
larger. He is a larger. Again, it's like it depends on how you want to look at it. He's a larger threat in some ways because he is so much more open and explicit, and people who hide it and couch their language in the language of anti-racism are also extremely dangerous. So yeah, Nick Fuentes would be worse, I think, than Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah,
And
but
Zoran Mamdani is very bad.
okay, I think that this illustrates like it's not just worse to a little degree. It's worse to orders of magnitude. Like Mamdani, I will even just grant you that he might make things a little more worse for the Jewish population. Nick Fuentes would actively seek as a matter of policy, right, to drive out not just the Jewish population, but any
And he wouldn't be able
non-white
to.
person that he could find.
But so where's our disagreement? Because I just said that Nick Fuentes is worse than Zoran Mamdani. So where's our disagreement?
Okay,
Like,
the
what are you even
disagreement is
pushing
in,
back
I
on?
think that, again, I think that you are, while you do admit it's worse, it's the way you, it's the manner in which you speak of these two events and equate them and try to
Because
equalize
you
them, and
don't
they're
take
not equal.
seriously the threat. Because you don't take seriously the threat of anti-Zionism.
I've
The
had
actual threat
streams
to.
on my show about how flirting with anti-Zionism is allowing anti-Semitism into the left. That is a problem. That's something I've acknowledged on my show.
Yeah, you
Yes,
think it's
and I
a
do think
problem,
that
but again, we're
Mamdani
talking about
is a problem.
degree and severity. We're talking about degree and severity, and you don't see anti-Zionism as a severe threat in the way that you see
Nick Fuentes is a
neo-Nazi
fear. No, that is
anti-Semitism. Yeah,
true. Yes, I think
yeah.
Nick Fuentes is a order of magnitude worse. That doesn't mean I think anti-Zionism or whatever is fine, okay? Because a lot of people use it as a cloak, and that is it's a
Including Nick
shield,
Fuentes.
right? But Nick Fuentes doesn't.
Including Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes doesn't use this as a shield or a cloak.
Of course
he
does.
just says,
Of course
"I love Hitler."
No. See, this is not even true, though, because Nick Fuentes is doing his own laundering of his ideas. So, yes, he has said a bunch of these things, and he still does, and he'll tweet things, and he's an edgelord and all of
He
these
says
things.
he called for a holy war against the Jews, and he wants to kill them.
Yes. Yes, and Hassan Piker also sometimes speaks honestly, and other times hides his power level. That's what Nick Fuentes does. I mean, again, this was a lot of people had this commentary. All you have to do is go back and watch Connor Counterpoints' streams for the last 3 months, where he would tune in to clips of Nick Fuentes and say, "Wow, Nick Fuentes is like making all these liberal points. Like he's really moving over to the center. He's becoming more reasonable." Nick Fuentes has been explicitly and intentionally laundering his worldview so that it can become more popular because he is actively vying for power and control over the post-Trump future of the Republican Party. It is not a coincidence that Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson have also adopted anti-Zionist rhetoric. It's not a coincidence. You're right. He's not just trying to hide his views. He absolutely is trying to hide behind those labels too, because he knows that there are people who consider themselves good people who will agree with that criticism, who wouldn't agree with his other more explicit neo-Nazi flavors of anti-Semitism.
Here's the difference, and I think it is fundamental to our disagreement here, is the left, many will hide behind anti-Zionism to infiltrate spaces. I will agree with that, right? But what Nick Fuentes is doing is a fundamentally different thing. He is saying, hey, I want to have a holy war against the Jews. I want to expel all non-white people. I think that around blacks, never relax, right? Is something that he says, right? He hates Indians. He hates all these people. And he says, and you know what? My policies are actually good for you too, right? And that he's trying to he's saying that it's okay to hate the Jews because it also will make us stronger as a nation. And that's the difference between these two things. Let me read a couple of super chats, and then I'll let you respond.
He's doing both of those things, but yes, I agree with your analysis.
Okay. Why is my fan funding thing being weird. If I missed your super chat, I'm sorry. My YouTube's being weird right now. I'm going to try to get to them all. Gelatinous Rube for $2 says, Fuentes would be better or you're insane? Gelatinous Rube, you were crazy. Cameraman502 for $5 says, anti-Semitism is the oldest conspiracy theory in history. Hence it persists on both sides of the aisle. The right wing is facing it by name where the left wing failed. Well, that's the debate, cameraman, and I disagree.
I agree.
Gelatinous Rube for $20 says, the threat of anti-Semitism in the left is anti-white. Kicked out of the accepted minority groups. The right's anti-Semitism is hostility to ethnic enclaves. Anti-Zionist Jews are treated well by Fuentes and the right. I don't think that's true.
Why?
That I don't think that anti-Zionist Jews are treated well by Fuentes.
You don't think Dave Smith, Glenn Greenwald, Jeffrey Sachs, you don't think all of these people are given...
They're just going to be the last to get the bullet.
So, Wick, I agree with you, and the same thing goes for the left, right? Because all of the anti-Zionist movements throughout history, right? You had the Refuseniks, and you had the Ifsexia, and you had the Soviet Jews who also tried to prove just how assimilated they were and that they weren't a problem, and they worked with the anti-Zionist governments. And you're right, they were the last ones to go. And I completely agree. They're going to get eaten by the anti-Semites on the right, the same way that the Peter Beinarts are currently being eaten by the anti-Semites on the left. Peter Beinart is in a public argument right now on Twitter with Nardine Kiswani, who's the leader of Within Our Lifetime Palestine, one of the insane Palestine activist organizations based out of New York City, she is criticizing Zoran Mamdani for condemning an anti-Semitic graffiti incident that happened yesterday. She was condemning him for calling it out because she said that he was normalizing the idea that anti-Semitism is a real problem, when actually anti-Semitism is a fake problem that is only used to silence criticisms of Israel and pro-Palestine activists.
Well, yeah, I'm never going to disagree with you.
The anti-Zionist Jews that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes are being kind to and giving space to, I agree, they're going to get eaten by those people, but they are absolutely very open and warm to anti-Zionist Jews. That's just obvious. Katie, what's her name? It's not Katie Porter. It's this other Katie who used to work with Brianna Joy Gray. I forget her last name. She was on Tucker Carlson's show. She's also an anti-Zionist Jew. I mean, all anti-Zionist Jews are not just accepted by these people on the right. They're tokenized in the same way that they're tokenized on the left.
They're weaponized.
So this Gelatinous Rube is just objectively correct, even though I agree with your assessment that those people are going to get eaten by the anti-Semites on the right. That is also true.
Okay,
just be the last ones.
That's not treating them well. I don't think tokenizing someone or weaponizing them is treating them well. That's just me.
They're treating them well right now. Okay. Okay, Wick.
$10 from Gelatinous Rube to say Tali will lose because the ethnic lines of the left have been redrawn. The right's new hostility to ethnic enclaves is inclusive. The left's ethnic hatred is inclusive.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know about that one either, buddy. But
I think there might have been a typo.
I think the threat Tali faces from the right, not just for her Jewishness, but for her womanhood, because they're trying to repeal the 19th as well. So they don't want her to actually have a voice.
That's absolutely a minority opinion. But yeah, that's also something that I obviously disagree with.
I don't know. Some days.
Are you going to argue you don't think it's a minority opinion on the right?
I think it's a growing opinion on the right. It is minority, but it is growing. There are. Okay. Hold on. Well, 5 years ago, I didn't hear anyone talk about that shit.
So yeah, we've got issues. I agree. This is totally, and in some ways, I think this really is just like a product of the red pill and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree with you. It's growing from maybe 0.01% to 1%. I don't know. I just think this is a very niche, very online belief. There are much more prominent mainstream theories of the feminization of institutions, of the longhouse. There are plenty of criticisms of the way that feminism has negatively influenced society from the perspective of people on the right. But people calling for women to lose the right to vote is a extraordinarily fringe position.
I would say it is the logical conclusion to the thought line that is made, right, or arguments that are made by people arguing for the feminization of society has destroyed us, right? I think it's a
I
logical
disagree
conclusion
because I
from
also
Black
have
men.
lots of criticisms on the feminization of society, and I don't think the women should lose their right to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, same with this woman. I believe her name Helen Andrews, the one who just wrote this essay that everyone is like up in arms about, and she was just interviewed by Ross Douthat on New York Times. Um, I highly doubt that she wants to abdicate her right to vote, and she's making poignant criticisms of feminism and of the feminization of different industries and institutions in America.
Yeah, but we just had a discussion about how a lot of these people who are manifesting anti-Jewishness or anti-Semitism aren't actually anti-Semitic, not in their heart of hearts. They're not motivated by hatred of Jews. They don't really hate Jews. But nevertheless, their thought processes, what they're advocating for, how they're advocating for it, how they're conducting business, what they're actually doing is ending up being anti-Semitic. $5 from Gelatinous Rube. Meant what I said. Progressives require you to support the project of ethnic hatred, even if you are their target. Nobody gets a pass. Thank you for the $5. I just think that there is this. I hope that people will take, and I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about people. I hope that people will take the threat posed by Fuentes seriously, and I worry that they're not. I worry that a lot of people think, oh, he's just some weirdo on the right that no one takes seriously. I don't think people understand the level of influence he has had within the Republican Party for the last 4 years, right? More than that, right? But it's really blown up in the last year, right? I don't think people recognize how deep those tendrils go. It really is disconcerting when you look at it.
I agree. And this is what I'm calling out. This is what Avi is calling out, right? By the people who either don't see it or refuse to look at it, of actually how influential he has turned into, how that his movement is on the ascendance. I agree.
Okay. People are
Completely.
asking Kamala, or you had to vote. You have to vote for one. Kamala or Nick
Okay.
Fuentes?
Kamala.
Hassan or Nick Fuentes?
I can't vote in that election.
What do you think, gang? Ones in chat if you'd vote for Hassan. Twos in chat if you'd vote for Nick Fuentes. Come on. Don't cuck out on me, chat. Let's see what you have to say. Let me actually do a YouTube poll about this. Hold on. I'm really curious. It's looking like a lot of ones in the Twitch chat. Let's see what YouTube chat has to say. It's funny. Like people say that my chats, like a lot of people who come into my Twitch chat say everyone here's a left winger. A lot of people who come in my YouTube chat will say everyone here's a right winger. It's interesting to me the split. Well, we're still getting a lot of Hassans over on the YouTube section. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. I guess what do you want ideally? What do you want to happen with both the right and the left? Let's go with the left first. What would you like to see the left do differently? Who do you think hasn't been shunned that needs to be shunned? Who do you think has power in the left that should not have power? What would you like to see happen? And then I want to talk about the right, but let's talk about the left first. Go ahead.
So not to be redundant, but a lot of my criticisms here are going to be criticisms that I've had for the left since people here have been listening to me, which are criticisms of wokeness on the left, because as I explicated earlier in this conversation, part of the reason that this anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism is so entrenched on the left is because it fits perfectly into their woke, postmodern, sort of neo-Marxist worldview that everything needs to be divided in a binary between oppressor and oppressed. So frankly, I don't think there's a lot that the left can do until that framework of viewing the world is rejected. So yes, I want them to reject people like Hassan Piker, like the
But for you,
actual
it's more like
extremists,
an
the people,
ideological thing, right?
meaning like the wokeness stuff.
That you
Yes, because
want to
that
reject
is
as
where.
an individual. It's not an
Oh yeah,
individual so much as a
there
ideology.
are correct. So there are individuals who I think that I wish Democrats saw as beyond the pale, in the same way that there are individuals that I wish Republicans saw as beyond the pale, and I wish that people were more confident in drawing these moral lines. You can even say, I don't care who votes for me, I don't control who votes for me, right? But just like making your stance and your lines very clear. So I wish that both sides would do that. But yeah, the left is going to, and again, both sides are going to need to do this. They're going to really need to reevaluate what their movement stands for. But on the left, it's going to be very hard to disentangle this problem if they continue to view the world in this postmodern neo-Marxist binary.
People,
Jews just lose
Yep.
in every iteration of that.
People keep saying that this is a huge problem on the left, and most leftists that I've talked, well, not leftists, most Democrats, I should say. That's a distinction I want to make here. Most leftists have this problem. Most Democrats do not. And I think this is the reason the left hates Democrats, right? Is because the Democrats have successfully, for the most part, there's some exceptions apply to this, kept them out of decision-making power. Now, again, I agree. Back in 2016, after Trump won, we gave too much power to the left. And I've said that on stream, and I'll reiterate it again. That's true. We let this kind of way of thinking kind of infect us for a little bit. It peaked in 2020, but since then, it's gotten a lot better. Like, if we had this discussion even 2 years ago, I would be more on your side of things in this, and that the right's doing more, right? But not now.
Well, the right wasn't doing. See, I don't even agree with you though, because so both sides seem incredibly attuned to pointing out anti-Semitism when it happens on the other side. So you're right that like 2 years ago, you could plausibly argue that the right was pushing back against anti-Semitism more, or what they view as anti-Semitism. But they were pushing back on left-wing anti-Semitism. They weren't pushing back on it on the right. This is an extremely recent phenomenon of the right actually infighting, actually turning inward and saying, no, we're gonna create some chaos. We're gonna draw lines in the sand. We're gonna name names. So I think maybe you're even being too generous to the Republican Party or the right of 2 years ago. I don't think they were doing this. They were, yes, loudly, proudly, and I hope earnestly condemning the anti-Semitism of the left, but they weren't really looking at the problem on their own side. And I want to partially agree with you that like a lot of mainstream Democrats, especially the elected officials, they are not super woke, right? They don't come from this school of thought, right? They didn't start as these extremist activists. And many of them it's not the way they view the world. For a lot of them, it's partially the way they view the world. So they haven't taken on all of it. They're not as extreme. They don't focus entirely on the identity stuff. They have internalized this basic binary of oppressor versus oppressed. Many of them have. So I do think that this is much more pervasive in the left. I don't think this is something that just showed up. Yes, it peaked in 2020, but it didn't just show up. This has been long-standing in the academic institutions, again, since at
that's the
least
difference.
the 1960s.
That's the difference. If you're just talking about like academia, I think you have
Not just, but no, but it would be such a mistake to
like,
say just,
so, like
because
Hollywood,
academia doesn't
other
but it
institutions
doesn't
like
stay,
that.
right? But these things don't stay in the institutions. They travel outside of the institutions. We're just obviously seeing that.
I mean, yeah, but I think you're
How did woke
overplaying
escape the lab?
I think you're overstating the case. I think that yes, there's a problem, but you're pointing it out to be a flood, and I think no, we just have a leaky pipe that burst, and yeah, it's flooding, and we need to put it out.
Well, yeah.
But we're not.
It's not surprising.
We're
that
not having
disagree about
houses
this.
being washed away, right? That said, I think that the left, largely, Democrats especially, have recognized that this is a problem, and we've taken steps to fix this problem.
Who on the left has called out the problem of anti-Zionism on the left?
Who on the left has called out the problem of anti-Zionism on the left specifically? Like David Fetterman, Chuck Schumer. There's been a few others.
John Fetterman, Chuck Schumer, you said condemned anti-Zionism on the left. You would have to point that out to me.
Yes.
You'd have to point that out to me.
Okay, let me see if I can find it.
Gelatinous Rube said, "Who has called out the problem of anti-whiteness?" Actually, amazing point, and it goes to my point of why the left is not going to get out of this problem.
Ro Khanna's called that out. We've seen Richie Torres call that out. We've seen even, I think, AOC has called that out.
AOC has called out anti-whiteness.
A problem of anti-whiteness and things. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on that one.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
Hold on,
Richie Torres, who's someone that I
let me just ask you this in general, just a sanity check here. Yeah. Do you think that the 2025 Democratic Party is more or less anti-white than the 2018 Democratic Party?
They are certainly messaging less about it because it's less.
Yes, because we've realized it's dumb, and the people who message about it get.
Wick, I don't know if that Wick. I don't know if that's true, honestly, because again, I pay a lot of attention to left-wing media, and most of the people, I won't even say most. There's a segment of people who don't acknowledge at all that wokeness or identity politics played any role in the 2024 election. If anything, the role that they think it played is just racism and sexism. So those people, there's a segment of people on the left, they don't believe that the left has an anti-white and anti-man problem. They believe that the 2024 election was evidence of the right's anti-black, anti-brown, and anti-woman problem. So that's one segment. There's another segment that I admire a little more, but I still have some contempt for, who acknowledged that the identitarian stuff and the woke stuff was a problem for them in 2024, and they say that strategically it should be focused on less because it's an optics problem for them. So they are not even saying we actually have a problem on our side of villainizing white people, of villainizing men, of villainizing all of these different things. They're saying, I think we got a little too loud about this stuff, and yes, we do need a fight. We're never going to abandon, the Black, disabled, trans immigrants on our side, but we should talk about it less because it's not a winning issue for us. It's a very, very, very small minority. In fact, I don't really know who you would even be referencing, who are saying this is a loser for us and it's wrong. It's morally wrong and it's factually wrong.
We're going to go through it. Well, if you click on the share screen, there's Schumer. Schumer condemns anti-Semitism, warning the left against abetting it. The majority leader and highest-ranking Jewish official in the country cautioned progressives and young people against unwittingly embracing bigotry in the name of social justice. Is that good enough for you?
Well, my question for you explicitly was who on the left is calling out the anti-Zionism on the left? Because again, anti-Zionism is the anti-Semitic movement. So this is, again, what Chuck Schumer is a step in the right direction, but it leads to the same problem that I already addressed, which is if you just call it anti-Semitism, most people on the left, and again, some of them on the right, they don't acknowledge what they're doing as anti-Semitic. They acknowledge what they're doing as fighting against racism, as fighting against imperialism, as fighting against colonialism, as fighting against oppression. So they don't view what they're doing at all as anti-Semitic. So it's good that Chuck Schumer is saying, hey, people on the left, we shouldn't be anti-Semitic, but he didn't even call out the anti-Zionism that is the vehicle for anti-Semitism on the left. So
he has to say the specific word anti-Zionism or it doesn't count?
Yes, it's like people on the right, if people on the right, Wick, sorry, Wick, hold on, no, I'll flip the question back to you. If people on the right were coming out and saying, I condemn anti-Semitism, and we on the right should make sure that we don't fall victim to the same ugly games that the left has been playing by turning against
I've already given Ben
Shapiro,
not Tucker Carlson, I'm sorry, Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell, their flowers for this. I've said It's
Okay,
good they are
so
doing
then, Wick, I
this.
disagree with you. Then I disagree with you because that wouldn't really be worthy of flowers because that's not specific at all. The reason
Okay.
that these people deserve credit for calling this out is because they are being specific. They are calling out the specific uh, conspiracy theories and dog whistles and all of these things that are being used. They are naming names. They're talking about it very specifically. Again, if I would give them the same grade that I would give Chuck Schumer if they were coming out and saying we stand against anti-Semitism. I would say, well, that's nice, but it's kind of, the actions of your commentariat class really belie that point. And so I think it's good that Chuck Schumer, again, as a Jew, it always seems to be the Jews that are calling this out. I think it's good that he says we on the left should not fall prey to anti-Semitism. But no, he didn't even call out by name the overwhelming majority pusher of anti-Semitism on the left, which is anti-Zionism.
You understand though that, and like I get you that a lot of anti-Semites hide behind anti-Zionism, but anti-Zionism isn't necessarily anti-Semitic.
It is in almost 100% of cases. Yeah, it is. It's if your exception to sovereignty only extends to the Jewish state, only extends to Israel, then you are. And the overwhelming majority of people who call themselves anti-Zionist, it's not because that's one of a series of political views that they have that they hold consistently. It is their obsession, it is their entire personality. They take on an anti-Zionist label and then they just talk about Jews in conspiratorial ways by replacing the word Jews with Israelis or Zionists or IDF, things like this. So I hear you. And even if that's let's say it's true. Let's say the majority of self-proclaimed anti-Zionists were not functionally anti-Semitic. That's how Jews perceive it. So that's the problem that Jews are perceiving, and I think that's a relevant factor if we're talking about anti-Semitism.
Look, I'm with you. Someone starts if that's all anyone ever talks about is their anti-Zionism, it's a red flag. But a red flag does not necessarily mean a mine is there. Here's Representative AOC condemning hatred and anti-Semitism at pro-Palestinian rallies. I think
Again,
this is
if they're not calling out anti-Zionism,
okay.
then it's much weaker. It is because Wick, you can't name it. It's like it's like
Hatred and
saying, okay,
anti-Semitism
if
is naming it.
I'm a BLM activist, right? I'm going out there and saying all of this anti-white stuff, but couching it in the language of anti-racism, and then I go out and say, white people are our brothers and sisters in the resistance, and so we need to respect them. That carries very little weight if I'm also out there talking about the original sin and talking about how everybody is racist and they have to actively throughout their life, it's double speak. If you are at one of these fucking campouts, these pro-Palestine, anti-Zionist campouts, you're there supporting their message. You're there chanting along with them. But then you get up and say, "But guys, we don't want to be anti-Semitic, right?" It's like, well, that's what we're all here
See,
doing.
that's better than that's better than a lot of the pro-Palestine
and I'm giving it a small amount. And what I'm telling you is that no, I don't think it will be effective in actually eradicating any of these sentiments because it doesn't address the actual root of it, which is anti-Zionism, which is couched in the progressive postmodern worldview of oppressor versus oppressed.
Okay. I think that we've hit a wall because I can give you a lot of these receipts, but if you're not going to accept anyone...
Okay, so AOC, fine. So Wick, do you believe that people need to practice what they preach? So if you think if AOC meant it, why is she hugging Hassan Piker and getting on his stream 2 nights ago?
Because she likes clout. And
right,
again,
because she doesn't actually care about anti-Semitism because she prioritizes clout and her movement over anti-Semitism, which, by the way, tons of people on the right are doing. Tons of them. They are prioritizing clout and their associations over calling out anti-Semitism. So no, none of them get high marks for this.
Okay, we can AOC can and I
the criticism of Megyn Kelly.
It's the
criticism of Megyn Kelly. Hold on, it's the criticism of Megyn Kelly, and it's really fucking valid. Megyn Kelly put herself out there for years as a defender of the Jewish people, and for a year plus after October 7th, she was was ruthless in attacking the left and calling out their anti-Semitism. She really never addressed it on her side. But now things have come to a head. People on her side are calling it out. She says that she stands against anti-Semitism. And then she talks about Candace being brilliant and a sweet girl and a young mother who doesn't deserve the attack. And she talks about Tucker Carlson being obviously not anti-Semitic and a dear friend of hers. So yeah, I take Megyn Kelly's condemnations of anti-Semitism about as seriously as I take AOC's condemnations of anti-Semitism, which is to say not very seriously because they don't prioritize it, obviously.
Can someone be... The problem is you create this trap for people when you reframe it like these way, right? Where you have to support Israel or you're anti-Semitic. Because if you don't
That's not what
support
anyone's
Israel,
saying.
you're called an anti-Zionist.
No. That's such a straw man. So few Jews actually believe that or speak that way. No one is saying you have to love Israel or even support Israel. Anti-Zionism is not supporting Israel. There are plenty of ways to criticize the Israeli government, to criticize the U.S.-Israel relationship without quote unquote being an anti-Zionist. Anti-Zionism is the
I promise you,
opposition
if I went on
to
Twitter
Israel
today,
as a Jewish state.
if I went on Twitter today and I said something that was critical of the state of Israel, I would have a ton of people. My reach isn't that great, right? But I'd have a ton of people calling me an anti-Zionist.
Okay, anti-Zionist. Well, what would you say? What would your criticism be, Wick?
My criticism would be that, hey, that's not fair. I am anti-Israel. I'm not necessarily an anti-Zionist.
No. Your criticism, you're saying if you were to go out right now and criticize Israel, you would get all these responses calling you an anti-Zionist or anti-Semite. Yes. What would your criticism be? That's my point, because that's what actually matters.
What would my criticism is Israel be?
Sure, yes.
Let's give you one.
It's relevant.
I think that they have not taken the proper care in their prosecution of their war against Hamas and have let far too much collateral damage happen that they should not have done.
And you think that would get you called an anti-Semite?
An anti-Zionist, which you believe is anti-Semitic.
Sure. Go do it. I mean, let's see. Because the position that you just stated is one that every prominent Israeli news station, Israeli podcast, American Jewish podcast, super Zionist people and spaces all have many of those same criticisms. So again, the issue is not criticizing Israel or disliking Israel. That's not what makes someone an anti-Zionist. And again, that's actually what makes it more ironic is you would get so much further just doing that than calling yourself anti-Zionist, because Zionism is the belief that Jews, really, I shouldn't even say belief, because I actually think that we should be phasing out the use of the term Zionism. Zionism was the movement to establish a Jewish state in Israel, in the historic homeland of the Jewish people. To be anti-Zionist is to oppose Israel, to oppose the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. That is beyond criticism of a foreign power or criticism of an alliance. Well beyond.
Gelatinous Rube, just real quick. Gelatinous Rube, if you want call-ins, if we can get, I don't know, next 20 minutes, let's say, well, 15 minutes, let's say, because I don't want to go too long. If we can get $50 in the next 15 minutes, if we can get $50, okay, whether that be on Twitch or on YouTube, I will open it up for call-ins if Tali's okay with that. Are you okay with that, Tali?
Yes, I have.
No, if you have something to do, let me know and I'll just rescind that.
Well, Kay and I are gonna be meeting and recording. Kay, are you in the chat? You can respond and say how much time you have. But yeah, we can go for like a little bit longer, certainly.
Well, now I'm worried that it won't be worth people's money, but no, we'll figure it out. $5 from Zephyr Hash just says, does she know that she voted for a guy who had dinner with Ye and Fuentes? Oh, but God forbid, AOC appeared on Hassan's stream. See you.
You want me to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a question to you.
Did already. Yes, I do know that I voted for Trump, and I do know that he had Kanye West and Nick Fuentes for dinner at Mar-a-Lago in 2022, I believe. Yes, I'm aware.
Yeah, thank you for the 10 gifted Wick TV memberships, Aika Batozai. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations to all those people who just received memberships. Yeah, I take issue with your framing that they have to call out anti-Zionism, and if they don't call out anti-Zionism, they're not really calling out anti-Semitism properly.
No,
I
they
just
don't. They don't
think
have
that's
to.
true.
They just won't. You're right, Wick. They don't have to. They just won't actually eradicate it if they don't. So like, they're not going to get past the problem. They don't have to. That's fine.
Okay. I again, I disagree with that. I think that we can.
Fine. You're a history buff, Wick. So I'll give you a piece of homework. Go back and find a single anti-Zionist society or movement in any country in Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, anywhere that didn't end in hostility and persecution of their Jewish population.
I
If
can
you
give
can
you
find me a single
individuals who've done
civilization
that.
that did that.
I just
No,
read
not
one.
individual people, because the point is the movement, is that this is turning into the position of the Democratic Party in the same way that it completely ate the Labour Party in the UK almost 10 years ago now. So if you can find a single society, again, in history that was anti-Zionist in form, that did not lead to hostility against and persecution of their Jewish population, then we could talk about it.
The
But until then,
problem
I do think
is, the problem is
explicitly
that
condemning anti-Zionism will be required.
every single country has had persecution of the Jewish people. But the question is, was that because of the
Not every.
anti-Zionism?
First of all, no,
portion?
that's not true. So it's not every single country. And again,
Which
there's a
country
difference,
hasn't?
Wick. So I mean, do you want to list out all of the countries? Jews have not been kicked out from every country in the world. Just
Not
like
kicked
obviously.
out. You said persecution of the Jewish people. Because there's plenty
Okay.
of countries that persecuted the Jewish people that didn't go so far
There
as
are, and
kick them out.
but I'm talking about societies, governments with explicitly anti-Zionist movements that controlled them. Yes, it's not, you're correct, Wick. It's not just anti-Zionism that led to the persecution of Jews, right? It was religious hatred of Jews from a Christian perspective. It was religious hatred of Jews from a Catholic perspective. It was scientific and racial hatred of Jews, right, from the Nazi perspective. And it was anti-imperialist, anti-oppressive, anti-Zionist hatred of Jews in the Soviet Union, in Libya, in Egypt, in Iraq, in Iran, in Morocco. So yes, you're right. It's not just anti-Zionism that has led to the persecution of Jews. However, every society that has adopted an anti-Zionist movement in their government has persecuted their Jews. So yeah, it's really serious, and we should contend with it.
FYI, my poll just ended, so we had 51 votes. Who would you vote for if you had to vote? 63% of the YouTube chat said Hassan. 37% said Fuentes. I am curious to pick the brains of the 37%, but you know that actually mirrors perfectly Trump's approval rating, right? 37% approve, 30% disapprove. Interesting. $2 from Shapingro. Thank you, aka Batauzai, for the Wick membership. True. More people should thank aka Batauzai, just like that. I don't know. I just think that, like, you will not get. It will never be enough if you require full-throated condemnation of anti-Zionism to give, to declare something that is accurately and fully fighting anti-Semitism. I just don't think you're ever going to get that. So what we can get,
I agree,
and what we have gotten, is people such as AOC, Chuck Schumer, Ben Shapiro, Ted Cruz, all calling out on their various sides, and this is to all their credit, right? The people who are over the line anti-Semitic on the things. I like, it's racism's always going to be with us to some degree, right? That's just, I don't think we can realistically erase it forever, totally. But we can get close, and I would prioritize reducing it to a small, insignificant factor rather than, well, if we can't eliminate it all, it just doesn't count. Does that make sense?
Oh, well, I didn't. Of course, yes, and I agree with you. And I never said that if we can't eliminate it all, we shouldn't try. I'm totally, I want to reform anti-Semitism in this country, brick by brick. It's okay if we can't improve the lives of all the anti-Semites out there, but at least some of them. So I'm totally with you. But again, Wick, the point that I'm trying to make is that yes, the left should condemn anti-Semitism on their side, loudly, explicitly. They should name names, they should draw boundaries. However, if they choose to do so without explicitly talking about why anti-Zionism so often manifests as anti-Semitism and why anti-Zionism is so dangerous for Jews in this country, then they will fail to meaningfully eradicate it. So I'm with you. I'm not saying that you need to take a whole hog approach or never try. I'm telling you that I think pragmatically, so long as the approach is to call out vague anti-Semitism and not specific anti-Zionistic anti-Semitism, then you're not going to see any changes because the majority of anti-Semites on the left or people who act in anti-Semitic ways do not view themselves as anti-Semitic. So if you call out anti-Semitism on the left, all of the anti-Zionists who are actively promoting anti-Semitism say, "Oh, well, you're not talking to me." They're looking, in fact, and saying, "I agree. We do need to get rid of anti-Semitism on our side because it delegitimizes our righteous movement against Zionism." So yes, I am appreciative of any small step that slightly decreases the level of anti-Semitism on either side of the aisle. But I don't think it will be able to be meaningfully addressed if it's not called out in specific terms, because the people who are purveyors of it on the left do not see themselves as purveyors of it.
And this is I think the fundamental difference here between the right and the left is the right will just say, yeah, I hate Jews. They'll say we want a holy war against Jews.
Some of them. It's a small minority, but yeah, some of them. It really is a small minority, but yeah, I agree. And yes, that's bad.
Well, it's Fuentes
very
who's
bad.
again being
That's a 5-alarm fire. But Wick, the people who feel those things but just use more clever language are just as concerning, if not more concerning, because they are able to legitimize their platform. So yes, I'm very concerned about the explicit neo-Nazis on the right, and I'm concerned about the tricky anti-Semites on the left who speak in the language of anti-racism and anti-oppression.
Okay. I mean, like, look, again, the left has a problem. I just think that the right has lost their battle and the left still fights. But we'll see. All right, we'll see at the end of the day. Hopefully the right can turn it around. Hopefully the right can prove me wrong, and that Ben Shapiro will be successful, and they will successfully ostracize and shun and purge the people, the Groyper movement, and things like that. But as it stands today, I think they're losing their battle, and we'll see.
I agree.
But with that,
I hope they win.
Yeah, I hope they win too. The world would be a better place. Yeah. I want to give you closing thoughts, closing statements, all that. Where can people find you? What else you got coming up? And then I'll talk briefly to my chat, and then we'll just go. Cool.
Okay, so we're not doing call-ins.
We didn't get paid enough. Unfortunately.
True. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to be redundant, so I don't have many closing thoughts. I feel like I feel like I made my argument several times. I'm extremely concerned about anti-Semitism on the left and the right, and I hope that people within both of these movements take meaningful steps to stem the tide. Otherwise, I think the U.S. will join a long list of countries that, to their detriment, lost their Jews. So I think that's unfortunately not an unrealistic outcome. I don't think it's tomorrow. I don't think it's in 2 years. I don't think it's in 5 years. But again, I harken back to the absolute best place to be a Jew in the 1930s was Germany. They were well assimilated into German society. They had positions of power in the government, in the arts, in academia, and we know what happened only a few years later. So yeah, I think this could happen in America, and I hope we don't get there.
So, just real quick, AKA Batozai, it does count as 30, but we needed 50. And 30, then 5 from Zephyr Hash, that's 35. 2 from Shapingro, 37. I mean, yeah, I just it didn't hit the mark, but we still appreciate it, and I still love you all. I think that yes, there are secret or much more sneaky bigots on the left. But the right has those too, as well as in addition to the Fuentes types. So I would argue that the right is infected in a way that the left is too, but to a lesser degree. But we've had this discussion, we had this debate. These are closing thoughts. Gang, if you like this content, if you enjoyed what you saw tonight, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. All that is going to help you all be better prepared. And $50 from Alexander Wren, I guess. So maybe we are doing call-ins to say people who have gone mask off are far more dangerous. They can't be shamed or outed for what they are. $10, I'm sorry, 11 from Gelatinous Rube. $11, that's a weird amount. Hit the word of power button. So do you have time to take about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of calls?
Yeah, I just messaged Kay. She hasn't answered, but that probably means that she's not ready to start yet either. So she knew I was doing this. So yeah,
okay.
Let's go.
So let me put the link in chat. Dear chatters, if you would like to join. Yeah, thank you, Alexander Wren. That's really appreciated. Very, very generous. I put the link in the YouTube chat. If you put exclamation point Discord in the Twitch chat, the link will pop up. You can click that link. You can accept the rules. You can jump backstage, right? And then we'll pull you in and you can have the discussion with us. Sound good? So if you have a problem with anything I said or anything Tali said and you want to say it to our faces, now is your chance, okay? Let's bring in the caller, at least one. Hi, what's up, brother?
Oh no, I didn't turn it off in time. All right, getting the double voice. Hi, can you see me, hear me?
I can see you, I can hear you. What's up?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so who do you think is up next on the ethnic chopping block? Because Wick is quite clearly doubling down on the left strategy of just redrawing ethnic lines, who's an acceptable minority, and who's going to be targeted for the sake of ethnic destruction on behalf of these anti-American people, and I do put people in quotes, people who hate the American proposition and the white Christian history of destroying racism across the globe.
Man, like, you say a lot of words, but I don't know what you mean. Can you use English, brother?
White man ended slavery. Sorry, I was a little verbose there. That's my bad. Sorry, I haven't gone to sleep in like 36 hours. It's not a good idea.
So what's your point? White man ended slavery. Cool. They also started slavery. They fixed their own problem.
No, they didn't, actually. That's a historical lie. That's blood libel.
In America.
That's blood libel.
Specifically.
It's the same kind that you're trying.
I'm talking America.
No, because those were also Tali's ancestors and mine, technically. I'm one of the small hat folk. So
no, that's actually also not true. I mean, Jews made up a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of slavers, but your point is correct.
Tiny minority everywhere.
Yes, and they made up a tiny exactly, and so they made up a tiny proportion of even Americans at the time. There's something like I remember there's a statistic.
Big
something
things,
like,
small packages.
There was something like 60 or 70% of the Jews in this one town like were slave owners, and it turns out there were literally like 7 Jews in that town, right? So, but your point is correct that
they're probably mostly
your point
Irish.
is yeah. Sorry, I'll put my camera back on. I was walking away for a second. Your point is correct that white people did not invent slavery. And arguably, slavery could not have been, the white people could not have started it up in America if it weren't for all of the brown and black people selling their brown and black people to begin with. So slavery is not a uniquely white phenomenon. And if anything, it's white people and Europeans who abolished slavery in their own societies and pushed to abolish slavery around the rest of the world.
Whereas the places in which we targeted, or the places we took them from, have continued slavery to this day. And in far more numbers, and in far more severe outcomes, and under far more brutal conditions. But Wick's instant refrain was, white people also started it, because this is his side's playbook, which he's going to now target Jews with. I mostly came on here, really, just to test you for a moment, because
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay. I never brought up racial framing in this. You did. I never even put a racial.
The subject of the panel is
did.
anti-Semitism. You did. It's your panel about racism.
Well, it's my discussion with Tali about anti-Semitism specifically, and whether it's a more political problem on the left or the right now. But that the idea of bringing in anti-whiteness to this is something that I did not bring in.
I know. I'm bringing it in because you're running the exact same playbook.
That's your thing.
So I'm trying to help.
Like, you got to make it about white people. It's not about
I do. It's a big concern. But it is ultimately because that is the left's source of ethnic hatred, is because they look white.
I mean, it's not the only source.
Am I wrong? Would you like to contest that?
Because the left hates them because they think they're white?
Affirming...
I do contest that.
Yes, of course. Yes. Well, how could you contest that? That is one of the, again, going back to the fact that most people who purvey anti-Semitism are not necessarily motivated by hatred of Jews. A lot of the anti-Semitism on the left is because people on the left, again, these postmodern neo-Marxists, believe that white people stand atop of the oppressor versus oppressed binary, and they see Jewish people not just as white people, but some of them see Jewish people as like the whitest of the white people, right? They are the epitome of this colonizing white force.
Like, this isn't
Israel is just apartheid South Africa,
that
Rhodesia,
Democrats
in the Middle East
generally hold. This might be a fringe position that a few people on the left might hold, but Democrats as a general do not hold this position.
So the left does. And so if you want to say Democrats, meaning in the context of like the United States, sure, not every single Democrat holds this position, but like I argued to you earlier, a lot of them, most of them have absorbed at least some of this worldview and framework, and a lot of them have swallowed it completely. This is absolutely a product and a problem.
This is the framing from the right. I understand this is your argument, but I don't think it bears out in reality. When you look at the
actually.
The reality is that your entire voting base is...
Hold on.
This is important.
This is not just a framing of the right. This is a book that I'll recommend for the 100th time, and I can send it to you, Wick, if you're interested. It's called Contemporary Left Anti-Semitism, written by Professor David Hirsch, who is a socialist sociologist from the UK. He is a very left-wing person. Just a few months ago, he dropped out of a conference on anti-Semitism taking place in Jerusalem because some of the same people who were hosting it were cozying up with the AfD people in Germany and Tommy Robinson. He is a principled left-winger who stands, he's anti-Trump in ways that I find cringe and over the top, a principled left-winger calling out this very specifically, how this is absolutely an intrinsic part to left-wing thought, not the American Democrats, to left-wing thought. And this there are patterns in left-wing thought across the Western world because this comes out of the same academic forces.
Your dog whistling right now. That's why your dogs are barking. Okay, just FYI.
True. But listen, I came in here because earlier you asked me a question about Fuentes.
Yes.
And whether or not, he would be safer for Jews in New York City. First of all, obviously Fuentes would be safer because he's anti-crime. So there's not going to be any kind of muggings or stabbings, racially motivated or otherwise, and definitely racially motivated or hate-motivated crimes against the Jews are not going to be tolerated on the basis of, who was committing them.
Well, there won't be.
So
hold on, if Fuentes got
Fuentes
elected to New York City, there wouldn't be Jews left in New York City.
He would deport them. He's going to shovel them with those skinny arms? He's going to be shoveling them into the smokestacks himself?
No, he would use the police and use the state government in order to deport them, to get them out.
No, that's fiction that you've invented. There's no such
plan. Fuentes has called for a holy war against them. He said he would.
Fuentes called for a holy war against them like 2 years ago. Fuentes' recent appearances were under Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson, both people who you've maligned as covering for anti-Semitism and giving them softballs, who at the time said, and got Fuentes to agree with this, said, we don't believe in ethnic hatred. Tucker Carlson was very specific about this, does not believe in the concept of blood guilt, genetic guilt, because that, of course, is evil. It's why he rejects the modern ethnic enclave-supported progressive left. You hide behind Democrats.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
There's there's two things here. Number one, I'm going to partially agree but largely disagree with you. So, number one, you're right that he has said these things. However, he's just laundering his own reputation in the same he's hiding his power level in the same way that Hassan Piker does, right? He says certain things on his stream and then other things when he's being interviewed by the New York Times or CNN or any of these places, right? And so I do think that that is what Nick Fuentes is doing. However, I have listened to a lot of Nick Fuentes, and so I actually do think he does make that distinction. It's like it's tortured to say, like, I don't think this makes him a good person. I don't think this absolves him of any anti-Semitism, but he has made this distinction that no, it's not literally every Jew. It's not literally like born in their blood. But he also then says, even though he agrees with that, essentially, like you don't make rules for the exception, right? And so we got to treat them as a group this way. So you're right that he will make these distinctions, and he's willing to say, yes, it's not by virtue of blood. It's, he'll say, I have Jewish people in my life who I think are awesome and smart and funny and whatever. And then follow it up with, but I don't trust them. And so, yes, he's willing to make the distinction, but he still feels that practically you need to treat them as a group because it's the overwhelming majority. And he sees it as understandable and pragmatic.
Right.
Like what he says, of course they would. They're a small minority. Right. So you're
that's the source
right.
Of this on the right.
He does make
so
this distinction, but Wick is correct that he would still treat Jews as a group in that way. And
right.
I
won't contest it with regards to Nick Fuentes specifically and his views and whether or not he's laundering, because I think it's just tortured to go over. It's difficult. With regards to Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, who Wick is also maligned, this is absolutely.
You mean accurately describe what they're doing,
view.
Right? Yeah. I've accurately described what they're doing.
Tucker Carlson has specifically stated. And this is his personal belief, this is his deeply held religious conviction, that ethnic hatred is evil, and said so, when it did not benefit him to do so, when he knew he would not get any points or concessions, either from Nick Fuentes necessarily, but especially not from people like you, who would malign him anyways, and say that he was a racist, dangerous person anyways. Said so anyways because it's his deeply held religious conviction, because he's a better person than all of us here.
Do you know what hiding your power level is? It's when someone will say, "Well, I'm not racist,
hiding
but
your power level
I don't hate ethnic minorities, but I don't so much."
Hey, Wick, what's your test for it? Is it does it go beyond people you dislike or people targets that you find useful?
When someone comes on your show and says, I think Stalin's a pretty good guy, I think my test for it is whether you let him get away with that uncontested or not. And Nick,
what about Stalin?
Nick Fuentes got away with that uncontested.
What about Stalin? Was that the discussion?
That was mentioned on the Tucker Carlson interview. Nick Fuentes.
Should I, on all of our panels together, should I sneak in little outrageous things? Not that I don't do this already, but should I make a supreme effort to sneak in little shit? If you come on to my show
and you start saying, like, you say something crazy, like, I want to repeal the 19th.
What if I sneak it past
regardless
you?
of what the conversation was about? What if the
conversation diverts into something?
It's going to be about the crazy shit you just said.
I can make it happen again. It's pretty
that's
easy.
kind of what you do on my show. You came in, you say crazy shit.
Exactly.
And we talk about it, right? But we don't, like, just let you say crazy shit.
I say a lot of crazy shit, and you don't address all of it. And it would be fucking stupid and incredibly dishonest, as you're being right now, to just say, oh, Wick believes this because James said it on his show, and he got away with it uncontested. And I could just completely ignore the rest of your body of work. Right, the rest of your stated opinions.
We can look at Carlson's body of work, and I think it agrees with me that he's pretty anti-Semitic.
Absolutely. What part of it specifically? Give me a test. What part of it?
Okay. If every show,
this is so shitty of you to do. I hate to moral F in this way. It's such a shitty thing to do.
Oh, shitty thing to do to call out someone who goes and has Holocaust deniers on their shows and launders their reputation, who goes and has Nick Fuentes on their shows and launders their reputation, and goes and has people who say, well, Churchill was
You
the
just
real
had, like, Nick
villain
Fuentes
of World
twice
War
because you
II,
couldn't think of
and
three
launders a
examples, so you just had
reputation.
Nick
This is a
Fuentes twice.
pattern of behavior where he goes to Russia and launders Putin's reputation. Carlson,
He had an
Tucker
interview
Carlson has
with
a
him.
pattern of behavior where he launders a reputation of evil men. He hasn't done it not once, not twice, not thrice, but multiple times over the course of his career, especially since he got fired for lying knowingly, right? That's why he was fired initially, right? Because he was lied knowingly. He spread a knowing lie.
Hey, what's your opinion on this?
About
That's not laundering
Dominion
somebody's
voting.
reputation. Unless, of course, you consider talking to people that you disagree with laundering their reputation.
It's
And
not
you're
just
using that to paint the target.
having a conversation with them.
In your
It's
mind,
having a friendly
he's as
conversation
bad as
with them.
Putin as a result of interviewing him. That's your position. Is that the case?
Of course not. You are making shit
Well,
up.
he's
Under
just
what
obviously
circumstances
Team
can
Putin.
somebody interview Vladimir Putin?
Under
The
what
issue
circumstances
really
if they
isn't
push
just
back against them?
interviewing. Yeah.
That exactly. If you're not attacking
Can
them
you
in the process,
can you name a
and you're
time
not going
Carlson
after them
pushed
in the
back
middle,
against Putin during that interview?
he's in a foreign country under a dictator. He's just getting the guy's opinion. He's not suicidal in that process. He's not the American equivalent of a suicide bomber, where I don't know, he waves a rainbow, pulls a rainbow flag out of his ass and waves it at Putin or something like that. Is that appropriate pushback? No, I don't think that Tucker Carlson needs to push back every time that he's interviewing somebody. But in the case of Nick Fuentes, he did.
What was the pushback?
The pushback was, it is his deeply held religious conviction, despite the fact that this wouldn't benefit him because his opponents are evil, even though this guy is smug, pompous, makes mistakes all the time, has many faults, he would still be attacked for something that wasn't his belief at all. It's his deeply held religious conviction, puts him at odds with the Zionists of the right, that blood guilt is anti-Christian, is anti-human, is immoral, should be rejected by the right. And the growing sentiment of anti-Zionism, which is what I said in the beginning, growing sentiment of anti-Zionism on the right comes from a rejection of ethnic enclaves, which is why Tucker Carlson affirmed yet again, why Dave Smith affirmed yet again, hey, we do not believe in blood guilt because it's ridiculous. But you, on the other hand, you launder these people's opinions all the time. Your entire party is supported by ethnic enclaves. Zoran Mamdani wouldn't have been elected by native New Yorkers. He was elected by transplants.
By transplants?
Your party may have well lost every single election, certainly a clear majority of elections, without the largest mass migration in human history, which we've undertaken since 1960, which you abuse people by calling them racist just for even questioning.
I wonder why people who move here and women don't want to vote for you when you want to just take away all their rights. I wonder, that's crazy to me. Trump made
the right to my shit. The right to my shit. The right to act in the right to
they
act
voted
in
for the
an
right
ethnic
wing,
enclave,
but then
where you
they
only
saw
hire
what the
people
right wing
from
was
your
saying and
caste,
doing to them
where
and
you
was like,
only
fuck
hire
that.
people of your race, where you
Anyway.
only vote for people of your race.
No, that's the opposite of true. That's the opposite of true. This is projection. Every accusation is a confession.
The Somalian in Minneapolis
Every accusation
just
is a confession with these people.
Just lost his race for mayor because he was not of the right Somali tribe. A different Somali tribe voted against him to make sure that he would lose because there's an ethnic tension between the two tribes, which are both Somalian. They are ethnic enclaves.
Okay.
America does not have a caste system.
You're just demonstrably wrong. There's plenty of people who vote for.
Does
Look,
India
how
have a
many?
caste system?
Hold on. Hold on.
On the basis of caste or ethnicity in America, and if so, what is the color of their skin?
Okay, how many black people voted for Biden?
Answer that. No, you answer that.
How many black people voted for Biden?
Who votes
is Biden
on the basis
black?
of ethnicity in America?
Is Biden black?
In a matter of speaking.
In a minute. Okay. I'll see you later, Ash. Bye. In a manner of speaking. Okay. Anyone else want to call in? This is just Ash. Ash is the one that we paid $50 to talk to.
No, I thought I was gonna get yelled at way more, but that just turned into all you. So
Yeah. Well, we got one more. Thank God. Okay. Hi, Kalinda. How's it going?
Hello. Oh, do you want me to turn on my camera?
If you can.
Holy zoom in.
Well, we can't see it at this point. But
you're a loner box regular, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. We've talked before.
Okay, cool. I thought
yeah, I don't know if
recognized
you're using OBS or something, but it's not picking up your camera.
Linda, no.
Okay. Well, you know what? Just give us what you got. Vocally, I guess. If we can't see you, we'll have to just go with what we got. What you got? Now we can't hear you.
I think her whole thing is she's
well.
probably glitching out.
Okay, we'll bring in Schwango real quick, and then we'll have Kalinda.
Linda, we'll bring you back after.
Yeah, we'll bring you back after Kalinda. We'll get you fixed up. Okay, Schwango, what you got for us?
Just man, that I can't remember. I can never remember his name. I try to forget it, but the last name is Paul. Just
The Ash guy, James.
just
Yeah.
gives aim to the brain.
Oh, your audio is awful. By the way.
Just
truly terrible.
Yeah, there's like levels of bad audio that I've never before
Here,
heard.
I'll be back in a second.
Okay, you know what? We're batting 1,000.
Let me fix it. I'll be
Sounds
back
like he's in the Hamas tunnels.
Yes. Okay, Kalinda, did you get it fixed?
No, my computer exploded. Hold on.
Okay. Well,
Yikes.
let's just get the audio for now. We'll just do with that. Because we can't hear you.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, because now I'm on my phone and I'm using my Bluetooth headset because, yeah, my computer exploded.
Hope that's not
Anyway.
literally true, but
Well, no, it's not, but it's being weird. And yeah, I'm a Loner Box regular. I'm one of his mods, and I also stream now too. But
nice.
Okay, Tali, listen, I love you. You did really great in that debate against Prime, but goddamn, you make my brain hurt with your weird "I voted for Trump based on vibes" shit. And I only caught the end of this panel, but it seems like. Is it your like? Do you think that anti-Semitism is worse on the left than on the right? Is that
No.
your contention?
No, I do.
Okay.
I would. I like you. So hopefully, I can't tell you how to spend your time, but maybe you should listen to this conversation from the beginning because I was pretty insistent from the beginning that that's not the framing that I'm interested in. The framing that I was interested in for this debate with Wick is, frankly, which side is like publicly addressing this more, infighting about their anti-Semitism problem. But I'm certainly not contending that the left is worse than the right.
Okay, because I mean, the problem is that the anti-Semitism on the left is largely found in the crazy online socialist oppressor versus oppressed brain rotted garbage people, and not the mainstream Democratic Party. Do you agree with that?
I definitely, I largely agree. However, what I've maintained for a while is that these people do have a lot of influence on Democratic elected officials. They are their staffers. They are loud, social media matters, and they're very loud online. And I would argue they have been actually a lot more effective lately. So how many both prospective candidates and sitting congressmen up for re-election are now running on an anti-APAC platform? That's a total change. That is something that we've seen an increase of, I would say, in like the last 6 months. Frankly, it's like the new thing to be anti-APAC on the left. Yeah, so I mean, it's widespread now. It's always been anti-APAC on the extreme left, on the fringe that you're talking about. But yeah, my argument is that the fringe on the left has grown significantly, and that because it's popular, because it works because it fits in with the populist framework that is buzzing on the left and the right. Being anti-AIPAC and anti-Jewish, I mean Zionist power, is turning into a popular platform for Democratic elected officials. Do you contend with that?
I mean, I think that unfortunately, that is a reflection of the polling data that says that that where support for Israel is pretty down. I mean, have you seen that? That
Yeah, but I
especially
don't
among
see how that.
Democrats?
Yeah, but that just feeds my concern.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah,
just
I
saying
agree.
that we have to ask where that comes from though, right? Because I don't know the extent to it. I don't think that all of those people feel that way because of anti-Semitism. Although I do,
No,
and listen,
most of them don't. Most of them don't. And again, I do hope you'll listen to the conversation, because I don't think most people who are purveyors of anti-Semitism on the left and frankly on the right also are motivated by hatred of Jews. But anti-Semitism functions as a conspiracy theory. So the people who are doing
yeah,
the anti-AIPAC thing on the left have bought into a conspiracy theory about Jewish power, even though even in their mind they don't really see it as Jewish power, they see it as Israeli power, and anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and I don't hate Jews, I love Jews, and they probably do love Jews, and they are still purveying anti-Semitism and promulgating anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jewish power. So yeah, I do actually think it's growing on the left. And again, this is to say nothing of what's going on the right, which I talk about every day, which really severely concerns me. But I do find way too few and way too late, but more prominent Republicans in good standing calling out specific people on their side for their specific rhetoric more than I see on the left. And that's because it's much harder to name, because a lot of the anti-Semitism on the left dresses itself in anti-racist language. They say that they are anti-imperialism, they are anti-oppression, things that are like, oh, I'm on the left, why wouldn't I be against those things? It makes it very slippery and hard to identify for some people and harder to point out, because there's so many layers of plausible deniability for a lot of these people. And again, a lot of them aren't motivated by hatred of Jews, but it's still a problem and a growing one, as you point out by the polls.
I mean, I think that the problem with the AIPAC thing is part of a larger anti-establishment, weird, lobbying bad, billionaires
Part of the
bad bullshit
populist,
thing.
yes, and
Yes, it's
the
part of
billionaires bad thing
populism.
also hurts the Jews, because right, Jews, that all of these things are conspiracy theories about
Yeah, I
Jews,
know.
even if not. So yeah, I agree. It is, and this again, I laid this out early on in this conversation too. A lot of this just plugs in easily to the populist energy in the party right now, and it's
Well, yeah, but
still
it's not, the populist energy is everywhere though, right? Which is the issue.
on the left and the
We
right.
have
I
to,
said the same thing
yeah,
to Wick
we
in the
have
beginning.
to
I completely agree.
address, yeah, populism needs to be addressed, and I don't know how you fight back against that, because it's such an alluring, sort of easy answer to everything. Just blame it
We've
all on the billionaires or the
yeah.
elites or
Yes.
whatever.
Just to be clear, we've beaten populism before. This isn't the first time populism reared its ugly head. Populism, the way to beat populism is to let them have power for a little bit, and then people
Yeah, oh
run
yeah,
away
I
from
know.
populism really
But
quick because
Maybe
it's
hopefully. We
destructive.
live in a different
And
time. Technology is different. Or, their ability to propagandize and communicate is different. I hope you're right. I'm also against it, but and it's a problem on the left and the right. So,
well, I think
and
we're
in
seeing
ways that
a
they are
rejection of
literally coming together,
populism.
like Tucker Carlson has come together
Yeah.
arm in arm with Cenk and Anna, right, and Glenn Greenwald, and you see the actual horseshoe of the populists on the left and the right. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that's
So I'm
usually
concerned
what
on
that,
both sides.
yeah.
I really am.
We do have a little bit of a
It
line, and
loops
I want to make
around.
sure that everyone gets a chance to get in here. So,
Oh, you
Kalanda,
do?
do you have
Okay,
a?
if you actually want to have people come in and argue, I'm sorry. I would honestly, that fucking Ash triggered me, and really I just wanted, a part of me just wanted to come in and yell at him. Although I think that guy is I don't know. I don't know if he's trolling or not when he says shit about the
I think
1960s
some of it
Immigration
is a
Act, or
troll. Yes.
he's actually like a
I
crazy
don't think he's a
person.
troll.
But
I think some of it
okay,
is a troll.
because anytime anyone talks about the 1960s Hard Stellar Immigration Act, usually those people are I don't want to say the word, but yeah, usually those people like Fuentes, because that was one of his talking points.
Yeah, well,
There's certain groups of people on the
true.
right who like to talk about
Maybe
that
we'll
shit.
have a discussion on that. Kalinda, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
Glinda.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Hello, you're live.
Hello?
Hello, you're live.
Hello.
Can you hear us? If you're talking, we can't hear you.
You hear me?
I can hear
No?
you now.
Now we can.
What do you got for us?
Okay, I can hear you now, finally.
Beautiful.
Okay, so I guess I just wanted to go over a few points with Tali. So just to clarify, you think the left is a little more dangerous with regards to anti-Semitism right now? Is that what
No.
what is
No.
your stance on it then?
Really the only argument that I made with Wick that prompted this debate is that I see the right doing more to publicly more infighting, basically. The right is making it an issue that people have to contend with in a way that the left hasn't done at all, in my
Okay.
view.
So,
And by the
okay,
way,
so
I think on the right, it might be too little, too late, and it's definitely too late, and it's definitely too few people. So I'm not even trying. I'm not trying to.
yeah. Well, so the
Yeah.
problem with the right is it's inherently more militaristic. It's when you have it's founded on conspiracy, right? There's no way to disprove it. There's no way to fix it. There's nothing you can do to make them feel less like they hate Jews. But on the left, it seems like it's more reactive to the war in Gaza. So it seems like if, let's say, tomorrow that war ended, the rhetoric on the left would disappear almost overnight, right? Whereas there's
No.
nothing you can do on the right at all to even reduce it because the people who believe it believe in conspiracies.
I wish it were that simple. I think anti-Semitism is essentially a conspiracy theory. It's a series of distinct and connected conspiracy theories. I simply disagree that if the war ended tomorrow, it would cease to be a problem on the left.
I
Because
didn't say it'd be.
hold on. Okay, so it's been a problem on the left before October 7th. Number one. Number two, a lot of the anti-Semitism on the right that we're seeing is also a reaction to the war. So I scoffed when you said that because it's a lot of this is propaganda and conspiracy theory, but also yes, it is. People are horrified by what they're seeing, and by the way, that is part and parcel of Hamas's plan. That is literally how they planned to win the war. They've been doing this for many years now, most successfully October 7th, which is to broadcast and increase wherever possible the suffering of their people and the destruction of their land. And so yes, people are reacting to what are truly horrific images that have been put there by design to elicit those types of emotional reactions. And because they're so emotional, they buy into various sets of conspiracy theories, and there are different ones on both sides of the aisle. But I think the increase of anti-Semitism on both sides really is in a reaction to the war. So I do agree with you on that front. But also, even before the war, there were people, especially on the left, who, with this flavor of anti-Zionist anti-Semitism, people who on the left for 30 years at least have been referring to what's going on in Palestine as a genocide, not as an ethnic cleansing, as a genocide, right? That didn't even
Sure,
just
yeah.
start now. So yeah, I think basically more people have been infected with this, and it will diminish just because people's attention is really short, right? So like the more that it's out of the news, the intensity of it will diminish, and that's good. But it doesn't seem to go away. It seems to, every time that something happens in Israel and Palestine, it radicalizes a few more people. and it comes in waves. And again, the largest wave by far was October 7th, but it's not, that's not going to drop off after the war ends, right? It just becomes less intense. And the next time something happens, you have all of those people are going to get reactivated, and
What do you mean,
new
those
people get
people?
the people who have already bought into that, right?
So yeah, you don't have to convince me on that. I largely agree with you. My point is, majority of the people who are outspoken on the left right now, it's in reaction to what they're seeing in Gaza. The people you're talking about from before who've been talking about this for 30 years, yeah, it's been a problem for like 70 years, right? It whether whose fault it is or whatever their stance on it is, it really doesn't matter. But the idea is, if this particular issue were solved, almost every conspiracy on the left would vanish. Whereas there's nothing you can solve.
What do you mean? You mean so that's not you? Do you by that you mean Israel ceased to exist? Then yeah,
No,
maybe, but it would turn to something else. War ending. This would not at all. It would not vanish at all on the left. The war ending,
I think
completely ending.
I think even if it completely ended, you would see a drop in quote unquote anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism on the left by like 95%. It wouldn't go away completely. Yeah. That's true, but it would drop almost completely.
The people who
hold on, the people who
feel that way would still feel that way.
Sorry, exactly. The intensity would go away. They would be talking about it less. It would be in the news less. It would be discussed less. However, it doesn't go away. That's the problem. It grows and it multiplies. That's the reality of the situation. And that's why I said these people, yes, and they get reactivated every time there is a new something that happens.
Hold on.
Again,
will there be more or less people who believe this if the war in Gaza ended today? Like in a year from now, are there going to be more or less people?
Not one fewer.
Not one fewer.
Not
I 100% disagree. I 100% disagree.
No, the intensity. People won't be talking about it. It will not be as hostile for Jews.
Tali.
People won't be talking about it all the time. Those feelings don't just go away.
Hold on. Do you know what?
Are out there protesting. They are not satisfied by an end to the war. They want an end to the quote unquote occupation, and the occupation to them includes Tel Aviv.
I understand that those are the people who are protesting. My question is, hold on.
That doesn't go away. They don't stop believing it when the war ends.
Let the caller get out his point.
I'm sorry. It's important. Okay, but it's important to understand. They are not upset. They are reacting to the war. And because of the horrific images that they saw in the war, they started doing research and came across a set of beliefs that tells them that the establishment of the state of Israel is the source of the oppression that they are witnessing right now. It's the inevitable end of Zionism. So no, yes, these people, it will become less severe, less extreme in their rhetoric. It will become dormant. It does not go away. There will not be a single fewer anti-Zionist, anti-Semites on the left a year from now if the war ends today. Maybe it'll stem the increase.
100% disagree, but give it to the caller. Go ahead.
So
you lack the context, and it's not even a long historical.
Well, hold on.
Let the caller go.
We don't necessarily lack the context so much as we lack the internal perspective that you have. But we also have something you don't, which is we see it more from a higher point of view where we don't have that much of a... It's like seeing a relationship from the outside, right? Hey, from the inside, it looks like there's nothing you can do. From the outside, there's obvious things that you can do, but those things are not as obvious as you would want them to be. There's flaws from both points of view, but my point is, if within the next month there was some solution where NATO came in to work in Gaza and Israel backed off and kept their borders, and Netanyahu got ousted and his regime fell and the left wing came in, most people would stop talking about it and would no longer care. Now, if something happens and a war sparks again, then that would be completely opposite.
And by the way, hold on, to be clear, wait, I agree with you. And those people will gain the scorn of the more intense people, of the activists, right? They'll say, you guys only cared when it was in the news. You guys only care now that the war ends, but you don't actually care about the sovereignty of Palestinian people and justice for Palestinian people. You give up the fight so easily. You buy into the Zionist media narratives. So these people, you're right. And I completely agree with you. And I am acknowledging this. There are a lot of people who will they will cease to talk about it. So the intensity of anti-Zionist anti-Semitism from the left will decrease if the war totally stops. And like you said, there's a new government in Israel. It's not going to be a left-wing government, but a more moderate government in Israel.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But again, it doesn't go away. It is there to be reactivated because the problem is Zionism to them. The problem is Israel existing in the borders that it exists in now, or really in any borders.
Sure, but
So it doesn't go away. So it is therefore still a problem of anti-Zionist anti-Semitism on the left. It is going to be a quieter problem when this is always how it works. Again, sorry, let me address one other thing. I really do completely agree with you. I have the benefit of the internal knowledge of this, and you guys have the benefit of being able to take a more objective view and look at it from the outside. I completely agree. I think that I should be able to talk about communities that I'm not a part of, and I do so frequently. So I completely agree with you, and I appreciate the relevance and importance of both of those things. But when I say you guys were missing the context, yes, I do. Part of me meant that, like not my lived experience, but just like seeing, right, having more access to Jews and Jewish communities and knowing how Jews are responding to this, but also literally having historical context of this. And I say that long-term historical context and also short-term. So again, I realized that this was an issue something like 4.5 years ago now. And when I realized this was an issue and I started reading about other Jews who realized this was an issue, this anti-Zionist anti-Semitism on the left, they realized it 4 years before me. And then there are the people who were writing about it 10 years before then.
Yeah. The
and
problem.
So this is a problem that increases. No, it gains followers every time.
The
so
problem,
again, I saw this in 2021, and there was the exact same reaction
your
in
argument
2021. It was just smaller scale.
Presupposes that there can never be a decrease in anti-Semitism. It must always go up. It can never go down.
Well, so
no,
Wick,
not at all.
historically speaking,
but that's not true. It's observably not true.
Hold on. Can I check to see if I'm getting the point you're trying to get at?
Yes,
the danger to Israel, to the Jews, will never go away on the left or the right, simply because these conspiracies will always find some place to thrive. And in the future, at some point, it's going to rear its ugly head again, and we'll be in a pretty similar position. Is that?
Yes, but I'm not as doomer, because I'm not saying that it needs to be inevitable. I'm saying the way to stop it, I'm saying that it will not, the reason that a year from now you will not have fewer anti-Zionist, anti-Semites on the left is because that's what the ideology tells them. The ideology has not been defeated by the war ending. If you meaningfully dismantle it, like anti-Nazism, right, after World War II, if you can actually meaningfully challenge the ideology and say why it is wrong and flawed and point to the historical context that it leaves out and all of these things, if you can challenge it and defeat it, then yes, of course it could go down. I don't believe that people are inherently evil and whatever. I do think anti-Semitism, like every type of tribal hatred and whatever, as you said earlier in this conversation, Wick, you can never get it down to zero. That part is true. So insofar as I believe that about other forms,
but my issue with you is
insofar as I believe that about other forms of bigotry, I believe it also about anti-Semitism. I'm not making an exceptionalist point for anti-Semitism. I'm saying it won't be defeated if we don't actually challenge it, and that's my problem. Is people on the left are not challenging it.
Okay,
that is what I'm here to debate.
Yeah. I understand that. We've had that discussion, but the point that if, like, I think it's just obviously and historically true that the more people, right, or if we had peace in the Middle East, in Israel, and there was no ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza, and if Netanyahu got ousted, I think you would see a lot of people abandon the ideology, because the ideology preaches that Israel is always the aggressor and is always evil. But when people see the counterfactual to that, they will, again, abandon that ideology. And that is just observably true. Anti-Semitism never goes away 100%, but it is waves. It comes and goes in waves. And again, a wave can decrease, and that is what the caller and I are arguing, is that if this happened,
and
the
I
wave
don't
would
disagree with that.
decrease.
Hold on. I don't disagree with that, and but only really. So I do kind of. So it would decrease. Some people, there's still going to be the ardent people, right, who believe that there is no justice in that land until Israel ceases to exist, until Palestinian Arabs have sovereignty from the river to the sea. So there are some people who will never be satisfied with that, and the number of those people has grown over time. However, I completely agree with you, but I think it would require really. Unfortunately, it's not something that Israel can do unilaterally, and it would require some type of like long-standing peace, something that we are pretty far off of, as far as I'm concerned, right? And so, until there can be like a safe and thriving and happy two-state solution, which we're at least we're a generation at least away from, frankly. Until that point in time, we're like you're saying, Wick, where if there's actual peace, then the ideology loses its meaningfulness.
I don't think it has to
It's the
be.
cause of all this.
Hold on.
I don't think, just real quick.
Do you know what the biggest problem right now with talking to anyone about the situation in Israel and Palestine is? The biggest problem is that there's nothing you can say really to when they say, well, the Israelis want this war, they want to keep it going. You can argue that they don't, the large majority of them don't, but there's no evidence to speak of because so far it hasn't ended. When it ends, the people who say this kind of stuff, they're going to have a lot harder time justifying that position, and they're going to get shut down pretty quickly by a lot more people.
But they will just move the goalposts, because the people who say that kind
But
of
it will
stuff
be
are
less convincing when
anti-Zionists.
they do.
Sure, but even if they move the goalpost,
but until so again, with some context of
Yeah,
what
it's just like,
reality
hold on,
on the
it's
ground
just
in
this.
Israel and Palestine
Oh
looks
God,
like,
let me get a word in
until
edgewise,
there's an
please.
actual solution, it's gonna flare up again in a couple of years, if not sooner, and then we're gonna have this problem again. That's my point.
Again, right? I'm not looking, and I don't think it requires 100% peace forevermore. But as the intensity draws down, to the extent that it does draw down, even if it doesn't wholly stop, they're always going to kill each other to some extent, unfortunately. I've been black-pilled on the region, right? But if it's less intense, it's going to be less convincing when some anti-Semite tries to argue with you that Israel wants to just kill all the Gazans when they're not actively doing that.
Yes.
And I think that is going to be less convincing. And a lot of people, let me finish, please. A lot of people who were convinced that that is true are going to see it is not true. It's simply like the fact that we see in every election in the U.S., everyone who gets elected, or every party that gets elected, when there's a wave, a blue wave or a red wave, says, look, the American people agree with us and they will never disagree with us ever again. We are now a solid coalition that's going to rule for the next 50 years. And it turns out to be bullshit almost every single time, because people
and you're proving
often
my point. And
changes their
you're
minds.
making my exact point. I completely agree with you, and that will be temporary until there is a more permanent solution in the Middle East, because something will happen again that will rile people up again. So to your point, Wick, yes, the last war, small war in Israel and Gaza, happened in the summer of 2021. Between winter of 2021 leading into 2022 and October of 2023, things were less bad than they were in the summer of 2021, and then they were after October 7th. And then it happened again, and it was worse this time. And this is the cycle until there is something that looks like a more permanent peace. And that's not easy, obviously. This will happen again. Israelis will be killing Palestinians again, so long as Palestinian aggression and rockets and terrorist attacks continue on Israeli soil. And then those images will go out to the Western world, and people will react with horror, because seeing people die is fucking horrific. So it will happen again. I'm not being particularly doomer pilled. I don't think I'm being particularly unreasonable. I agree. When the war goes away, the intensity is going to super simmer. And a lot of people might totally forget about it. And a lot of those same people will be re-radicalized the next time there is a war in Israel and Palestine, which there will be until there is something more permanent in the region, whatever that looks like.
We disagree, but last word from Rin here. And then we got to get to the last caller, because we do have a time limit. So,
yeah, I think my point in general is simply that when you're looking at the left and the right, there is a solution, or at least a short-term solution, to the rising anti-Semitism in the left. It will, if nothing else, draw it down for a while and stop it from growing. Whereas there's nothing really you can do on the right to convince anyone who's fallen for it. Not to mention, they tend to be more militaristic, are looking for a Christian nationalist society, and want to basically boot anyone who doesn't belong in their in-group. It seems like they're looking for the kind of power it takes to do the thing that every Jew is afraid is going to happen to them.
Okay.
So, that was it.
Thank you for calling in, buddy, and I'll talk to you later.
Mhm.
Okay.
Later.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if Schwengo is here. Will his audio work? Let's find out.
What's up, buddy?
Okay, much better. What you got?
Yeah, much better, huh? I finally crawled out of the hospital that is not being used. I repeat, is not being used as a military zone. How dare you?
Good start. Good start.
Yeah. So the last caller kind of summed up exactly what I was going to say. Meaning, Tali is right in some ways, where she says that there
I
will
love you
be a
so far.
there there will be a never-ending series of goalpost moving with the left, but that's to be expected. Like that's my pushback against that. Of course that's the case. Progressivism by itself definitionally means you cannot admit progress, because if you've made progress, that means there's either less or no progress to be made, and we just can't have that, right? But to counter against that, though, aside from the fact that most progressives are fucking losers, they also have no political power. They have cultural power, but no political power, right? And everyone that's tried to go as far as possible always ends up getting the brakes pumped when they either learn how the system actually works, see AOC, or they even as far as they go, they know that there's a limit, see Bernie Sanders, right? The issue, though,
Would you argue the
is
same thing on the right, though? At least right now in
oh, it's
elected
oh, it's
politics,
no, no, no,
it's
no. So anti-Semitism is effectively part of the cake on the right. Okay.
interesting.
Um.
I don't know that I see it that way, but
Well,
Well,
let him
let
make his
me. Well,
argument.
okay. Yeah. Let me ask you something here. Do you think the sentiment on the left, well, which is more prevalent, the sentiment on the left, sentiment on the right, for the Zog machine?
sorry, say that again.
Which political, which political orientation, the left or the right? Which one of them believe that the Zog machine is actually real? Please tell me you know what the Zog machine is.
Okay, of course I do.
Okay. Well, you,
This
you
is
look
the
confused by my question, and
no, no,
it
no,
shouldn't be
no,
very
no, no, because
confusing.
no, I'm not confused. My face was because you're not going to love my answer, which is this, of course, comes from the right. It's the right. It's literally a neo-Nazi
Yes.
acronym,
Well,
right?
of
That's
course
where
I'm
it
going to
comes
love
from.
your
So
answer. That's the correct answer. That's
no,
why
but
I'm
that's not my
saying.
full. It's not my full answer. It's not my full answer. It's not my full answer because Anna Kasparian and Cenk Zog post on the daily. So are
Sure,
people like
but
Graham
Anna's
Plattner.
a MAGA
So
grifter, okay, and
you
Chink
could say that, but
is kind
sorry,
of
hold on.
crazy.
She's not though. She's obviously not a MAGA grifter.
She's a populist. She's a populist, so
She's
therefore
a populist, yes, and there's a lot of energy
she's
for
going to
populism on the
magnetize
left.
to where populism energy is coming
My
from. Hence the grift. That's why there's no
sure,
principles
sure.
associated with it.
Fine. So even if it's unprincipled, Schwengo, my point is, yes, Zog is absolutely, it's a more prominent meme on the right, absolutely. And very unfortunately, this is where the horseshoe touches because it is growing in popularity on the left, and that concerns
Just real
me.
quick,
Yes.
$10 from Robert Paulson to say 54% of Americans agreed that the persecution of Jews in Europe has been partly their own fault in 1938. 11% believing it was entirely their own fault. So is it better or worse now? And his source is Gallup, apparently.
We would have to get those numbers now. They might be close.
As someone that has an immense amount of respect for the Jewish culture, I heard a saying of a famous a rabbi I heard once say,
Rick's face.
Zog
Well, I don't know
the
where he's
rabbi-
going with this, and I'm really curious now.
Well, to that poll, because that poll it horrifies me and does not surprise me at all that that's the sentiment, right? I heard a rabbi say, so if you're born a Christian and you leave the faith, you are no longer a Christian. But if you're born Jewish and you leave the faith, you're still Jewish. That will never wash off. Would you agree with that, Wick?
I agree.
Okay. Well, but this is the Wick. I'm using that statement more to the point of leaning to your side, even though I agree with much of what Tali's saying. I think it's more of you need to acknowledge the deeper end because left wing populism, let's face it, is very shallow. However, right wing populism is very, very deep, right? The MAGA ideology is, well, listen, we'll take you. You know, like I mean, like think Islam. We'll grant you dhimmi status if you're not the Aryan nation. Effectively, you can stay here, but the second we find you're unworthy, you're out, right? But with right wing, it is so deep. It is like anti-Semitism. It's just part of the cake. It's just part of the recipe. And you can say, oh, some
Can
prominent
you
people are
list
standing
some
up against it, but
examples?
that's like saying, okay, well, the glacier's coming, but I built some scaffolding and that'll stop it. Okay,
By the
that's
way, I
it's
think so. By the way, I think you might be right. Insofar as like, yeah, it truly might be too little, too late. I'm not even arguing that this is going to be an effective fight against it. I don't know how it will grow. I don't know how this civil war is going to turn out. It's been brewing for a while, but it's like really out in the open right now. Again, you can say that it's baked into the cake and maybe in different ways, right? Which is why I actually would be curious for you to put some meat on that and give some examples. Because while I might agree with you, or while there are some things that some people would interpret as anti-Semitic, other people might not, and or could be up for debate, I am heartened by the fact. Well, I think it's unfortunate for the Heritage Foundation, for them, but so many people have resigned from the Heritage Foundation after what Kevin Richards, is that his name? Roberts Richards said, the head of Heritage, when they had that leaked meeting of that all staff meeting. The overwhelming majority of people who spoke up were condemning anti-Semitism, condemning Tucker Carlson, condemning the leader of Heritage for what they saw as a problem of anti-Semitism. So maybe you're right that even all of that will amount to nothing, but that's why I am sort of curious what anti-Semitic
let
things
me
you
let me
think
give
are
a
totally baked
let,
into the cake on the right.
let me give a real world example. I'm going to ask. I'd like Wick to answer this question. So all of the when white guilt was at an all time high, early 2000s, right?
Well,
Early to mid 2000s.
2010s.
Well, I mean, okay, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, it's a little closer to then. But anyway, when all of this fanfare was given to like Ibram X Kendi, right? And Robin, what's her name,
Robin
D'Angelo, right?
DiAngelo. Yep.
Angela.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one, right? Okay. Now, one of the hallmarks of being on the left, unfortunately, as someone that is on the left, is that we're a bunch of fucking cowards and pussies. All right, they just kind of like the
Well,
personality type.
it's. I
Okay,
wouldn't put it that way. I'd put it like we are tolerant sometimes to a fault. But go ahead.
right, and I gave the blue collar version of that translation there, right?
What's your question?
Okay, that's what I'm getting at though, is that eventually ran out of gas.
Yeah,
Agreed.
you don't have the same it doesn't have the same cachet on the left it did 10 years ago.
Right,
It's basically
it
persona
ran
non
out of
grata. We don't invite
right.
Ibram X Kendi. No one's having Robert DiAngelo around. Their ideas are largely debunked and kind of they lack
And no,
motivational
do you
power
Not
on
on
the
the
think
left
left.
for the most
do you
part.
think that
That's not
same?
that's not true.
It's definitely on the left.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it's absolutely
definitely
true.
like it's only
They've
the if you are to the left of Hassan Piker, do they still care?
not sure,
Now,
guys. I wish that were true, but that's just not
now,
true.
Wick, do you feel that the gas tank will run empty on the right for anti-Semitism?
Of course not.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about because it's so entrenched, it's so deep in there. and everyone instinctively knows this.
Now, to be clear, I hope I'm wrong.
If you're
I
not,
hope I am incorrect in my assessment.
well, I know, but the fact that your intuition told you it won't, right, is all of is one of the most easily provable instances, is because you intuitively know. Of course it won't. Of course it won't. Why would it? Yeah. The what's his nuts? The AIDS brain guy that was on here earlier. That's like, even Dave Smith is he's a Jew, right? Like it's like yeah. If you're using Dave Smith as any sort of authority on anything other than how to get your ass kicked in a debate, then you're beyond hope. You don't understand logic. You don't understand reasoning. You don't understand how functioning compatible societies work, because Dave Smith doesn't, because he doesn't understand. It's so funny that whole populist movement is, hey, when something bad happens to someone else, hey, life's unfair. When something happens to me, hey, this is bullshit, right? Like it's cancer anyway. But there you go, Tali. That's what I got. What me and Wick just said is true. That is the nuclear
So
engine.
I gotta be honest. I don't know that what you and Wick said is true. I think it's possible. I feel like I've left this open the whole time since I started this debate or discussion. Is that it could be too little, too late. There might not be anything to save. I don't know. Not to go
And the
to
point
debate bro
the
mode,
point I
but that
mentioned.
wouldn't that.
Real quick, the point I mentioned about what that rabbi said about being Jewish is that this is a never-ending struggle for them. Where I agreed with you about the goalpost moving. It's just like, okay, they stopped killing. Good. Well, now you're killing their spirit because you won't give them back Israel. I'm sorry, I mean Palestine. Right? Like
It's not
every
even just
time.
goalposts moving forever. My point is that it actually could be specifically defeated if that ideology were specifically tackled, because the goalposts in theory couldn't move forever. They have an end goal. It's Israel not having sovereignty. It's Arab sovereignty from the river to the sea. And so I'm not even saying that because people are so intrinsically anti-Semitic, the goalposts are going to forever move. I'm saying anti-Zionism is pretty clear in that way, right? Like, so in a very literal way that doesn't require the moving of any goalposts, they might be relieved that the war is over, but they still are absolutely not done with their activism and their movement because their goals have not been accomplished. So the goalposts can be moved up to the I'm losing my sports analogy here.
Until everyone's wearing a brown shirt. I know,
Well, no. Just to the actual line is what I'm saying. Like, there's a very clear, and it's been explicated. Is my point. So it doesn't even require endless goalpost moving. Is my point. It's just
Well, no, it
in the
does.
literal sense. No, it
It
doesn't. It
does.
doesn't though, because
It
the
doesn't.
end
No,
of
listen.
no, it
It's
doesn't.
until you hit the wall, and according to most leftists, that wall is the firing wall. All right,
Sure.
that will
Okay.
be that you will be
The
put up against the
wall.
wall. That's the end, right?
Look,
I'm not even trying to go that far.
I wanna get last word in, buddy. Schwengo, give last word,
Okay.
last thoughts, and then we gotta move you out.
Basically my main point being is that left-wing anti-Semitism, while gross, while equally disgusting, while all that, this, that, and the other, blah blah blah, it will run out of gas, just like every other trend, every other fad that left-wing populism goes through, because they're cowards, they're weak, they don't stand on their conventions, and they have no political power, none, zero. Cultural power, probably.
Okay.
Political power, none. Whereas
Politics
with
are
right
downstream of
wing,
culture.
well, okay, but not when your population's a bunch of cowards, and they'll just go with whatever makes them, as Wick put, be a little too inclusive to their own detriment, right? Meaning,
Yeah, but the most
like,
extreme people on the left are not very cowardly, actually.
right, but they have no political power, and the vast majority of the
But they
country
have cultural power, and politics is
the
downstream of
vast
culture,
amount
and
of the
things are
country
escalating.
rejects them.
I think
The vast amount of the country rejects them.
the vast amount of the country rejects them. The Democratic Party has not rejected them, and I think that your argument, unfortunately, relies too heavily on woke actually being dead, but it's just obviously not
No,
dead.
it's not
The
dead.
left
It's not dead. It doesn't have the horsepower you think it does anymore.
Yeah, it's just
has a
it's
lot of
there,
horsepower
but no one
still.
listens to it.
Yeah, it's
not
there,
true that no
and
one listens to
hey,
it.
to their
It's not
credit,
true that
some
no
of
one
It's like
listens to
Britney
it.
Spears.
I mean,
she's still around.
fundamentally,
Ain't no one listening
I'll use
to her.
the favorite left wing word of systemic. their DEI and woke policies are systemic in the Democratic Party.
Well, that's just
in
not
the
true.
in the DNC specifically, they literally had to kick David Hogg out because it went against their gender quotas for his position. So yes, the entire DNC election, that whole thing, they started every day with land acknowledgements and pronoun sharing and all of that. This is the DNC in 2025. So sorry, it's still absolutely there on the left. It's less prominent. A lot of people have shied away from it because optically they see it as a loser, not because they disagree with the fundamentals of it. And I hope you guys are right that it's on its way out, but it still has tremendous cultural power.
Well, it'll never be on its way
Especially
out.
seeing
It'll never
themselves
be on
as
its way out. It's
la
just how much.
resistance against
It's
Trump.
not. It's not how. It's not that it's on its way out. It's how much strength does it have in its legs. And the
If you
idea
don't
itself.
dismantle it, if you don't defeat it, it hasn't been defeated by
You
anyone
can't
by the
defeat
left,
it.
not by
Okay,
anyone on the left.
but you can't defeat it. It's
You
it's
can,
like
you,
it's
okay,
like
but
it's like saying we should
but you
defeat.
can fight it in the marketplace of ideas. And most of the people who come from the left who meaningfully tried to defeat woke in the marketplace of ideas were pushed out of the left, and they are now, centrists or moderates or liberals or whatever, disaffected
Well,
liberals
I would argue.
because they spoke out against these things.
Oh, okay, but I was in that crowd. Okay, but guess what? Where you got led, where it led you, if it did not repulse you even more, then you never were left. You were just like a conservative, and you just grew into a conservative, which is fine. That's fine. I work.
I absolutely changed a lot of my beliefs, but no, there are people like Thomas Chatterton Williams, like Jesse Singal, like Katie Herzog, people who are still on the left and vote on the left, who are totally persona non grata in left-wing spaces and have been isolated and called a bigot of every single variety.
Right, but some of them, like Sam Harris, still has a wildly successful career.
Yeah,
right?
but not from people people in good standing on the left cannot talk admiringly about Sam Harris.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. I still listen to Sam all the time, and I fell into the trap Sam's lost it. He's XYZ until I actually. Do you know who actually brought me back into the fold of all people? Who saved me from going down the Stitch and Adam path was Destiny. When I started listening to him, because I was where you were, Tali.
I'm really curious.
Say what? Oh, they're just the ones that claim centrist. They're the ones that claim that they're centrist and balanced, but they just suck Trump's dick at every turn, right?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, but
I think that is. I've listened to plenty. Now, Sitch is the only one that has. Sitch is actually really smart, but for I don't know if Adam, if he owes Adam money or something, but he just keeps granting.
They're buddies. They're friends.
Okay, well, but things that are obviously improvable and easily provable. Like I've watched Adam rage quit 3 times on his stream because he got cornered and Sitch wouldn't back him. Okay, but that's the point, though. It's like the trigonometry guys. They claim they're we're actually liberal. We're actually, but for some reason you always support.
I will stand up for Sitch and Adam here.
And
I think that
I'm proud to be a Sitch and Adam. Yeah, I'm proud to be a Sitch and Adam fangirl. I'm very proud to be a Konstantin Kisin and Francis Foster fangirl. I think these are very smart, very wise.
I do think Adam's wrong on some things.
People.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. So they call balls and strikes fair. You would say that on conservatives?
That's not necessarily the thing that I'm looking for from them. I think everyone tries
is it just confirmation bias you're after? Is it
I like a lot of their analyses, and yes, I tend to agree with them. I tend to agree with their criticisms of the left and the right. They align
what
with
criticisms
my
of the
views.
right? What criticisms of the right?
Obviously, don't watch Sitch and Adam if you don't think they criticize the right. They literally
I do, and their criticisms range from
before Ben Shapiro's video came out. They had an even more impressive hour-long montage of Nick Fuentes, and this is something that they've been beating the drum. And the two of them have been having an internal fight about, is the woke right a real thing? How big of a problem is this? Between Adam and Sitch on their show for half a year, maybe more.
I will go to Sitch and Adam's channel in my free time, and I will screenshot how many times the subject of their show was more trans shit. Okay,
talking about
Bannon,
trans stuff does not preclude them from criticizing the right. You agree with that, or you disagree with that?
Look, other than my show, other than my show, which you should all watch religiously, okay, which is the best in my community, is the best. I think that Sitch and Adam is one of the few more right-leaning, and I do think that they're more right-leaning, right? They're more right-leaning shows that I think is honest.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think they're honest.
According to Adam, January 6th, like he gave the same response that like Bill O'Reilly gave, where it's like, yeah, it was bad, but hey, there are things, what about the BLM riots? What about this? Like, yeah, because those are even the same thing, right? Destruction
People
of personal
prioritize
property
different
is the same
things.
thing. Rioting and looting is the same thing as literally trying to overturn an election. At least
People prioritize different things. So first of all, they watched the entire January 6th committee on their stream. So they allowed they at the very least allowed their audience.
That it made
at the very
Trump
least they allowed their
disqualifiable
audience
for
to
president.
listen.
At least you have
At
the sense
least
to
they
say that.
listened. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, Adam didn't vote for Trump. Okay. So that's
So
number
what?
one. Okay, so they showed the entire January 6th committee hearing to their audience. Okay, so they at the very least allowed their audience to decide for themselves. You made, unfortunately, so many claims. I forgot the next thing that I was going to say there.
Yeah, when you specifically show things through a lens and then say I'm leaving it for myself.
Oh, sorry. Now I do remember a point. No, a point that. So to your point, about what you see as what you see.
He brings on an expert.
Okay, I
and
remembered
tells
what I was
them,
going to say.
just
So if you
provide the
don't
things
talk
so
over
people
me,
can
so that I
see it
don't
for
forget it
themselves.
again.
But
If you
everything
don't
they
talk over me, so
say
I don't forget it
goes
again.
Okay.
against-
I forgot it the last
Okay,
time that you
okay.
talked over me. So
Let her hold on. Let
Tali
Tali go, and then you can respond. Then we gotta wrap it up.
I got you.
So the
And
point
Tali,
that
I'm not
Adam
against
makes,
you. I just violently
you
disagree
can
with
be.
you. I'm not against you. I just violently disagree with you here.
Go ahead, Tali, please.
It's good. I don't like violence. What Adam says, which is something that I largely agree with, putting aside specifically January 6th, is that the reason that he cares a lot about cultural things and why he thinks that the electorate cares about cultural things is because these cultural things touch you in your day-to-day life in the ways that certain government policies or even the plot to overturn the election in Georgia and all of these things don't touch people in the same way that Wick is being touched right now. So I think that's a valid argument to make that whether you think it's good or not, virtuous or not, correct or not, it is true that people are making different moral calculations and prioritizing things differently. And so to Adam's belief, and I believe as someone who voted along cultural lines too, is that these culture war things, for lack of better terms, do impact people more because it's their everyday, it's their interpersonal interactions, it's their workplace, it's their university, it's their child's school, it's all of these things that are touching them day to day that are going to be more top of mind than specific policies that are going to take 10 years to unfold or to January 6th or any of these things.
Okay.
And you might think that's wrong, but it's a reasonable
On
belief.
that note, thank you, Dwango, for calling in.
You said I would get to respond.
Yeah, you have. That's what I'm saying, but I'm letting
You
you know.
that
So
sounded
once you're
like you
done
were closing
responding,
it
I will
up,
move
Wick.
you out. Go ahead.
That sounded like you were closing it up there, buddy. Yeah, sure. You know what? I think you're right. To the average person, that is a reasonable, and I'm saying reasonable with quotations that reach from the next state over to the other one. That is a reasonable perspective to have after you have already been pre-charged with a load of selfish, nationalist, populist nonsense. I think that is a reasonable perspective to hold. Because if you actually have principles that stretch beyond yourself and beyond what you care about, you should actually stand for something like this country used to.
Okay.
Maybe Adam is taking a stand against anti-white racism, against anti-male misandry, against
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you when you
anti-straight
did
discrimination?
Yeah, look, both of you interrupted each other.
While you were giving your final closing speech.
You're just so loaded. Continue.
Loaded with facts, and it's all right if you're hating on me for it.
That was definitely not an opinion. It was definitely a fact.
It absolutely. It's objective and measurable. We can measure these things.
Okay, enough. Finish your statement. I do want to go do other things at some point. You guys aren't paying me enough. Okay.
You know what, Wick? I've paid you quite a lot over this little bit of time here. All right. with super chats and like in my presence. Anyway, yeah, yes. When you've been charged, when you've been pre-charged in your mind to have this "everyone's out to get you" mentality, yes, that is a reasonable stand. According to that mindset, your Maslow's hierarchy of needs is in jeopardy, but it's not, and the data proves it. There is no
Okay.
epidemic. There is zero evidence of a system-wide targeting of you, Mister straight white blue collar worker, and someone that is that. All right, there's zero evidence of it that would affect you in any kind of reasonable or meaningful way. But when you drum it
Because
up,
not getting a job in the private or
Okay,
public sector.
I'm gonna have to throw a flag on this
not a
play.
reasonable thing to
Because
care
you're not
about.
credible.
Not getting into university if you're a young Asian immigrant,
Rick,
you
am I
should just
hearing a
get over
populist? Am
that
I hearing
because
populist talking
Black
points right
people
now? Is that what's
have been
going on right now?
oppressed systemically. This is not populism at all. I'm arguing for a colorblind, merit-based system in our private and public sectors and
If that was
throughout
the case, then how
academia.
come? If that was the case, why wouldn't they like? We can. I would love. I would love to actually get
Finish your
into depth
sentence.
of this with you
If
later.
that
Well,
were the
no,
case, then
no,
what?
no. I'm
Why
trying
don't
to
you
respect.
finish the
I'm trying to
sentence?
respect. One of us is trying to respect Wick's time.
I'm sure Wick
I
would let
would.
you finish your sentence.
Well, I've
What do
been
you think,
trying
Wick? Can he
to.
finish
But
his
what's that?
sentence?
The third interjection. I've been trying to. Okay. The bottom line is back to two things. One, the right
That's a dodge.
anti-Semitism is completely baked in. Two, to finish that point, well, we're going back to the original point here. All right, you're the one that's trying to appeal to the emotional gut reaction of culture's so important, right? As you get tariffed into fucking oblivion, but you feel good about it because those trannies can't play basketball anymore. Wow, right? Big
That's
W.
definitely my position. Yeah,
Big
no,
W.
I'm
Well,
glad
that's
that
what you're
you.
arguing for, because that's what you're
Yeah.
the one that said
Oh no, that
culture
is.
sounds
You're
in
right.
politics. You're the one that said that.
That's what I'm
Okay,
arguing for.
okay,
Yeah, no,
okay.
yeah.
Blah blah blah. I love you,
Bananas.
Schwingo. I'll see you later. Okay.
Love you, buddy.
Bye.
We'll talk soon.
Oh, I
Okay.
hope Wick doesn't get POS'd off of Twitch for that one.
Did I miss something?
He said the T slur.
Oh, hopefully I don't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear that. Okay. Regardless, if you guys enjoyed this show, and I'm gonna let Tali tell you where you can find her and stuff. But if you guys enjoyed this show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, send me some super chats, send me some gift subs on Twitch, send me some memberships. Really keeps the lights on, really helps us keep going here, and I really appreciate you. Thank you, Tali, for coming and having a discussion with me today, dealing with the callers and things like that. Sorry we didn't get to all the callers, but we tried. I do have to go and do other things. But Tali, where can people find you if they want to find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Talibots, TALIBOTZ. You can also find me right here on YouTube at Talibots. I officially have content on my page. I have 2 videos up. The first is a conversation with Noam Dorman, owner of the Comedy Cellar in New York City, where we spoke about Megyn Kelly and anti-Semitism on the right and the lack of courage of commentators on the right in calling out anti-Semitism. And a conversation from last week with Kay, member of the chat, frequent chatter over here. She and I are going to be having another conversation tomorrow, TBD the exact time. I think we're planning to focus on cancel culture, and related stuff on the left and the right, as we like to do as fake centrists apparently. But yeah, thanks, Wick. It's great to be back. The Wick and Tali show. I'm gonna be in New York. I'm going to be traveling for a couple weeks. So it's going to be hard for me to stream, but hopefully we can schedule something for when I get back.
We'll figure it out. For now, though, we'll let you go, okay? See you later. Okay. Did you guys have fun? I hope you did. What do we got coming up? Next week, on Tuesday, I'm going to be debating on the Raging Tomato Show about whether or not Tuesday was a repudiation of MAGA and not just the local elections. I am arguing that the results of Tuesday showed a deep and fundamental rejection of the right and Republicans across the board. Now, will that hold? I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't predict the future like that. But it absolutely was a result of people not liking Trump or his policies. And I think they rejected him at the ballot box Tuesday. But that will be a debate. It'll be an argument we'll be having. And then on another day next week, yet to be determined, I'm going to be having a right-wing panel, a right-leaning panel, I should say, where Counterpoints, Lactoid, and hopefully a couple more, we talk about whether or not Tucker platforming Fuentes in the way he has done is a problem. And I want to get the right-wing perspective from that. And so we should have that, and it should be a good discussion. And I am looking forward to talking about all that. Okay. That said, yeah, I'm gonna give you guys some time to do your own thing and enjoy your weekend. I hope you do. Yeah, that's what I got for you. Anything else? No?